Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, April 8th, 2022. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, from the show This Is Revolution, Pascal Robert will be here to look back on the week that was. Also on the program today, Senate confirms Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. Russian missile strikes a train station used to evacuate civilians from the Donbass region. At least 50 are dead. Peace talks, meanwhile, stall. Belarus demands to take part in them. Senate decides to punt on the already anemic $10 billion in COVID aid until they return after Easter. Meanwhile, Omicron infections on the rise. New York Attorney General seeks to hold Donald Trump in contempt. And the FBI is to investigate how classified materials ended up visiting Mar-a-Lago. 500,000 Puerto Ricans without power on day 3 of a power outage. And a top former RNC staffer gets 12 years in prison for child porn convictions, specifically infant porn.
Jesus.
Alabama votes to criminalize transgender health care and push a Don't Say Gay bill. House Oversight Chair says the DOJ is obstructing its Trump investigation. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. It is Friday, Casual Friday. Joining me, as always, Emma Vigeland.
Hello. Happy Casual Friday.
Happy Casual Friday indeed. We just got an IM saying from I Far Did. Hallelujah, MR. I was getting so fed up with the old on hold music from Beat Cops. That was not from Beat Cops. I think that was from Pilot Season. And but yes, understood. And thanks for changing things up. Well, we got that. What was the name of the?
We played the new music yesterday. Yeah.
Is that the music that we played?
Yeah, we played the new intro from Cinco Sanders.
Cinco Sanders, and
it's a bit groovy. It was like a surfer thing. Music.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about music.
I Far Did also writes on
Jesus.
a similar note, I greatly miss the old outro song, No, No, No. That is the song La Poupée. And for, I don't know when we switched, 3 or 4 years ago.
It was whenever YouTube started clamping down on copyright really hard.
Right. And we used to, it's a long story how we got into this habit, but we had our outro song for the entire show was La Poupée. And
between the fun half and the first half.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah. So we played Pilot at the end.
And La Poupée, which is a French song that was like a scratch track for Bad Situationist at one point. This movie I did that never released, really. And it turns out that La Poupée was one of the most covered songs in like the history of the world.
Wow.
And so we had everybody, like almost on a daily basis, people would send in like Japanese versions, Jimi Hendrix, like
I still don't think we played all of them.
Oh, no way. And
It must
but-
be fair use at this point. So they really were like coming after you for
No, not the
copyright?
recordings. Like the song, maybe.
yes, the
but-
song maybe, but not the recordings.
Oh.
And in fact, in Boston, Ted Leo, who is going to be doing music for the Boston show, is I think he's going to do a La Poupée.
Wow.
That's incredible.
And he's going to do a Pilot Light. And I don't think he knows this, but he knows the guy who wrote Pilot Light. They've worked together in a band.
Hmm.
I just
Small
went out. I
world.
went out with that. And Dave Derby, I've been meaning to email Ted about that. Folks, all right, let's get into this. Ketanji Brown Jackson was confirmed yesterday in the Senate. We will talk to Pascal about his sense of both the implications of the appointment, to the extent that there is one, and her credentials. He's an attorney, and but by any way you slice it, it marks a turning point in the history of the country. It is the first time. Not only is it the first time that a Black woman has sat on the Supreme Court, or will sit on the Supreme Court, it will also be the first time in the nation's history where the majority of people sitting on the court will not be white men. I think you still have plurality,
Yeah.
white men,
But-
but nevertheless.
Right. So it's Elena Kagan, Sotomayor, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Clarence Thomas, and
Amy Coney
Amy
Barrett.
Coney Barrett. Wow.
Thank God Brett Kavanaugh is there to represent me.
Yes, there you go.
Do you,
wouldn't want
do you
to-
feel seen?
It is just another example of woke culture where white guys just cannot get a break. Here is that vote tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 53, the nays are 47, and this nomination is confirmed.
You can see there the Republican members of
Walking
the
out.
Senate walking out.
Except for Mitt Romney, who's seen there standing.
Walking
Giving
out
his
like
hand
the
ovation.
Pistons after they lost to Michael Jordan.
Oh my
Exactly.
God. And Chuck Schumer down there is going like this.
Yes, Chuck Schumer is getting overexcited. And there's two things I want to note. Mitt Romney's dad, George Romney, was in addition to being the president of American Motors, I think it was at the time, or at one point, was also governor of Michigan, and was a little bit ahead of his time in terms of supporting MLK and the civil rights movement at that time, and sort of stuck his neck out a little bit relative to who he was, and in that time in terms of supporting civil rights. So not terribly surprised that Mitt Romney's not going to leave that the building in that moment. The other thing you should note is that apparently things took an extra half an hour to vote because Rand Paul and Lindsey Graham, in a sign of I think
Open disrespect.
a purposeful disrespect, didn't dress in a suit. And frankly, I don't like wearing suits, but apparently to be a senator, you need to wear a suit to get on. There's like a dress code to get in the floor of the Senate, which I don't think I was aware of. And so they did this obviously as a way of just saying, hey, we really want to show our disrespect here. And it really is more of a statement. Not only are they lowlifes in some respect, but how diseased their voters are.
Yeah.
In the mind. We really need to see you guys disrespect this Black woman who is being appointed to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Flip her off in your PJs. That's what we vote on.
Exactly. I mean, this is what they need to maintain their bona fides. And this is, and part of the reason why they did why they just need to show a blanket disrespect is because the Republicans never came up with a narrative that would work in any way with Ketanji Brown Jackson. They attempted to push this whole pedophilia thing, which was really as much of a sop to their QAnon base as it was an attack on her. But they're still trying. Here's Jesse Waters doing his best Bill O'Reilly impersonation.
I just wanted to show this though really quickly though. Her face when she gets the vote, it's 6 seconds. I mean, we just really, really quick, just because I think it is important to show this. Like, I mean, this is a historic moment. It's
there she is.
Right. It's beautiful, right? So keep going.
So anyways, they have been struggling to come up with a theme as to how they can how they could attack Ketanji Brown Jackson. And in addition to then the outright disrespect that Rand Paul and Lindsey Graham went after in terms of just not dressing so that they could get on the floor of the Senate to vote and slowing things down, making a stink of it. And like I say, the pedophilia attacks were as much of a sop to their QAnon base as anything else. These are people who are running for president, so they've got to appeal to the base of the Republican Party. Here's Jesse Waters with his attempt at, both imitating Bill O'Reilly and attacking the hypocrisy. Did you know that Abraham Lincoln was a Republican? That's one of these. That's where I would file this in. Go ahead.
I'll appreciate. But Democrats also blocked who would have been the first Black woman on the Supreme Court, Janice Rogers Brown, when Bush tried to elevate her because she was a Republican. So their intentions aren't pure.
Okay. I don't know what their intentions are pure are necessarily, but what is strange about this is that Democrats never had the opportunity to block Janice Roger Brown. I mean, she's a lunatic.
And if they had, it would have been righteous.
It would have been righteous, but it is simply a lie. She came up for a circuit coin appointment early. I think it was in 2003 in the Bush years. I don't know if she was actually nominated or her nomination was blocked, but then she ultimately was nominated in 2005 for the DC Circuit Court. She was confirmed. There was talk that she might be nominated to the Supreme Court, but despite the fact having a 55 to 45, was it, Republican Senate in 2005, George Bush did not nominate her. In fact, he nominated Harriet Miers. Now, the reason why Harriet Miers is not on the Supreme Court is because Republicans blocked her because he wasn't conservative enough. And we ended up getting Sam Alito. But it is a lie that Democrats blocked Janice Rogers Brown. I think that I would have wanted them to. She thought that we went through a socialist revolution in this country in 1937 when we got things like Social Security and 40-hour work week and a Congress that could actually, in an executive branch that could actually do things. So,
yeah, but the Democrats blocked her in a sense because they preemptively canceled her because she was a Republican.
They preemptively
right.
canceled her.
And so Bush said he had no option, and that was the Democrats' fault.
All right. We'll bring Pascal on in just a moment. But first, a reminder, today's program sponsored by our favorite sponsor, Sunset Lake Seder.
That is our favorite.
You get, with Sunset Lake Seder, you use the code Left is Best, you get 20% off. They have the finest Seder products around. All of their products are third-party tested. You can find the results of these tests on their website, they have tinctures, which I used last night to get to sleep, frankly.
Were you just singing Sebe Day to A Bay?
I was, yes.
Okay, just making sure. I was trying.
People understand why we say Sebe because we can't use the actual letters in the way they're pronounced without getting a problem with from our YouTube overlords. They have tinctures. They have smokables. They have pre-rolls. They have fudge with Sebe gummies. They have coffee with Sebe. They have balms, like a salve, if you will. Arnica and Sebe salve. They have hand creams. Check it out. Wonderful products. Very helpful for sleeping. Very helpful for chilling out after. Man, Matt uses it as a subsidy for his other smokables. And it's a great company. They practice great farming practices, regenerative farming, integrated pest control, so there's no pesticides, organic fertilizer. They are great movement partners. They've donated thousands of dollars to not only to charities, but also to strike funds and to soup kitchens. Their business practices are great. $15 minimum wage, mostly employee-owned company. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. I have gotten such great feedback on this sponsor that I really am super proud that to be associated with these guys.
I
Great
use
bunch of guys.
the tincture regularly to go to sleep.
It has been huge for me to get off of Ambien. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Pascal Robert. We are back. Sorry. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program Pascal Robert. He is an attorney and also co-host of This Is Revolution. Pascal, thanks for joining us here, obviously with Emma Vigeland.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being on with both of you.
Of course.
So a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about this week. I know that I had watched some clips of some things that you had put out on This Is Revolution. Let's start with KBJ. First, I want to just get your sense of her as a pick. In terms of her background in the law, like, you know, people talk about the diversity she's going to bring to the court as a Black woman. But for me, the diversity I'm interested in is that, like, she's not a prosecutor. She's not a corporate law. I mean, obviously she's been a judge for now, 10 some odd years, but
Worked as a public defender.
but she worked as a
first on the
public
court.
defender, which
Yeah.
is the big thing for me. So what is your give us your sense of her, in terms of her qualifications?
Well, I mean, in terms of her actual raw qualifications, she's probably, without a doubt, one of the most qualified Supreme Court nominees that we've ever had in terms of purely academics. She went to the right schools. I mean, as you guys probably know, usually if you are going to be a Supreme Court nominee, you usually have come out of the top 5 law schools in the country. Barring some examples, we've had, in the last 50 years, we've had Supreme Court justices that came out of Northwestern. Amy Coney Barrett went to, I think she went to Notre Dame, which,
Yep.
I mean, that's pretty shocking in terms of the overall norm. Not to say that it's not a good law school, but I'm just saying that normatively you think that these folks come out of Harvard, Yale, Chicago, Stanford, kind of Columbia, so on and so forth. But she went to Harvard. She was on a law review. She graduated with honors. So she had the academic qualifications. In terms of a legal career, she's done more judicial clerkships, not only Supreme Court clerkships, but judicial clerkships than any of the recent Supreme Court nominees by far. She's actually done more time on the bench than many of the other nominees as well. And in terms of the actual raw qualifications as legal scholarship, judicial tenure, as clerking for courts, federal and Supreme, she's outstanding in that regard. So that qualification is one thing. In terms of her jurisprudence for my politics, and I think our politics, the sad reality, I have to say, is that because of there's so much cynicism towards the Biden presidency for a variety of factors that we can go into, particularly for many on the left and some who are even on the radical left, that Biden has disappointed in some of his ability to see through promises that he made. There's a degree of kind of cynicism about this appointment, and it's reduced to a bit of a kind of like identity politics bone that he's throwing to the Black community. And I understand that sentiment because, frankly, with my politics being the kind of leftist that I am, I understand how the Democratic Party uses racial symbolism, particularly for Black communities, but not exclusively, as an actual proxy for redistributive actual policy. But to get to your actual point, Sam and I are pretty much proximate in age, and I can pretty much say this comfortably. She's the most progressive Supreme Court justice nominee in my whole life, and I could make arguments as to why she might be as, if not more progressive than Thurgood Marshall.
Wow. I mean, that's...
Well, yeah, of course, Thurgood Marshall is a civil rights lawyer. He's the kind of cases. But in terms of, she basically is the most progressive we've had since Thurgood Marshall.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, specifically why, and just note this, and I've said this before, about, I don't know, it was 10, 12 years ago, I heard Pam Carlin speak. She is a professor at Stanford, and in a fairly left on the spectrum of legal minds, as it were, that have prominence in this country. She would have been a good pick at one point too, but I think was outside of where the Democratic Party would go. She had said at that time, we hadn't had in decades a Supreme Court justice who got on the court and moved the court left from where it was, or in terms of the person they replaced. Now, I think that you could argue maybe, Sotomayor maybe, changed that a little bit, but certainly KBJ has done that with Breyer. It's like the first time that it's like a hands down, that seat is now occupied by someone to the left of the person they replaced.
Not only to the left of the person they replaced, but to the left of the traditional, very milquetoast, conservative, normative judicial picks. Let's make this abundantly clear, and I think, Sam, you appreciate it. By the way, I just want to correct something. I practice law. I'm not practicing right now, so I'm a lawyer, but I'm not actually a practicing attorney, so I don't want to misrepresent that.
In my experience, once you're a lawyer, you're always a lawyer.
Yeah, I call myself a recovering lawyer for a variety of reasons. But
Yeah,
the
it's
point
like
I'm going to say,
still calling Hillary Clinton Secretary Clinton, right? She'll have that until the day she dies. You're a lawyer, Pascal.
so the point I want to convey to you is that we have to understand that the Supreme Court is a counter-majoritarian conservative institution. What do I mean by that? This is not a democratic institution. It is a life tenure position, and the actual judicial power of the institution is to potentially strike down congressional legislation and state legislation that is actually decided by representative bodies of people that voted for them. So it is counter-majoritarian, and by the nature of what it does, you could argue undemocratic by its nature. All right. So that being said, part of the problem that we have with the way we view the court, as well as the way we view a lot of things, we view the court and America through the lens of the New Deal norm of how this functions. What do I mean by that? People say things like, oh my God, the economy in this country is so bad. We've been so conservative as a country for the last 50 years. As you guys know, we have a theme on our show called the 50-plus year counter-revolution, which posits that since 68 and the rise of Nixon, all of American politics has been a counter-revolution against the New Deal Civil Rights Coalition, which is true. But we fail to realize is that from the rise of the New Deal, particularly around, say, 1944, we know the New Deal starts in the 30s, till 71, when we have the collapse of the Bretton Woods Consensus. That is an anomaly in both American economic function and American jurisprudence, because this was a set of legal structures put in to protect capitalism from collapse in the face of massive left opposition from socialists and communists. So in other words, when you hear people say, like Donald Trump say, make America great again, he's not talking about the Lower East Side in 1913. He's talking about Ozzie and Harriet, Leave It to Beaver, and 1950, 1954. Those times weren't that great for most Black people in America, but that greatness was bankrolled by a government largesse where we had the highest top marginal tax rate in American history, and basically one of the largest periods of time of government control over capitalism, finance capitalism, and the function of America. So it's always ironic that these right-wingers talking about we want to make America great again, like in the 50s, when that was the closest we had to actually socialism in the United States.
Right. I'm sorry, and that you hear people to refer to that as the Great Compression. Thomas Piketty argues that that was like sort of an anomalous period of time in terms of like a wealth disparity. Again, obviously not great if you're a Black person and want to vote or have any type of civil rights in this country. But in terms of it's purely on, those economic terms, that was when things had flattened the most in this country.
Right. And that was an anomaly. That's not the norm for how American capitalism functioned. Well, guess what? Because of certain political realities, the Cold War being a large part of them, that was also the period of time where we had some of the most progressive Supreme Court jurisprudential decisions, from Brown v. Board of Education, Miranda, Roe v. Wade, comes in 73, but within the same kind of construct, that basically humanizes the function of the American legal system. It takes us away from like the worst abuses of jurisprudential pro-capitalism, like the Lochner era and all that other stuff, which are cases that are so egregiously like monopolistic capitalism that they to this day, you go to law school, you hear about these cases, you're like, what were these people thinking about? We also have to realize that was done because of the fear of the United States impression in the global South post-World War II, because of the appeal of Soviet communism to global South countries. When we say global South, we mean Africa, the Middle East, China, what they used to call the third world of developing nations. So there was a strategic pivot in the jurisprudence of the Supreme Court to facilitate an amelioration in the way America was perceived in the world. And there's a really great book called Cold War Civil Rights by a woman named Mary Dudziak that really talks about how particularly this was done when it comes to Brown v. Board of Education and all of the desegregation law. To get to the point, not to belabor this, because we look at the Supreme Court through that lens of that anomaly of a period of time, we don't realize how reactionary this institution has always been. You follow what I'm saying? This is the Supreme Court. Wesley versus Ferguson, Dred Scott, Lochner.
I would argue that we are, as of Amy Coney Barrett, really, as Amy Coney Barrett, I mean, we were headed in this way. We are entering into a new Lochner era. That we are going to see. We're going to see. We're going to see specifically, the rollback of the ability of the executive branch to do things like regulate. I think we're going to see limitations on even what the legislature can do. Like we're getting back into that era where it's like, if we were ever to have a Medicare for all, this is a court right now, as it's constructed even today, that I think would inhibit its deployment in some fashion.
I think you're absolutely correct. I think that on the actual objective analysis, you're correct. This is, at this moment, probably the most reactionary Supreme Court we may have seen since before the New Deal, without an absolute doubt. Going
About
back
100 years almost.
Going back to the lockdown era, and I agree with that. To answer your question about who you call KBJ or Ketanji Brown Jackson, why is she such an anomaly? First of all, I know definitely within the last 50 years, going back to Thurgood Marshall, she is the first Supreme Court nominee who has done any work as a criminal defense attorney. The last time we had one was literally Thurgood Marshall, and that wasn't even the majority of the kind of work that he did. He just happened to do some criminal defense work. Okay, KBJ or Ketanji Brown Jackson spent 2 years as a federal criminal defense attorney. Understand, that means massive major drug crimes, RICO case. She's defending serious high-level federal statute offenders, right? Now, people are like, well, why is that a good thing? Well, what is a good thing is that doesn't mean that she's like, let them loose, let all the criminals out. What that means is that if you look at the overall jurisprudence we've had, particularly from people like Clarence Thomas and Scalia, these are people who will make things like Miranda go away if they had a chance. Their jurisprudence on things like the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure, the police abuse of the rights of private citizens in their homes, things of that nature, have been so extreme that they have displaced the normative jurisprudence that we had of these cases that came out of the 50s and 60s. And the fact that Ketanji Brown Jackson is someone who has worked as a defense attorney means that she has been working, at least in a legal capacity, to fight against that trend.
Right. And in terms of Democratic nominees too, because she's one of the most progressive we've seen in, a long time, definitely the most progressive in decades. I would agree with you. The fact that she didn't cash in the corporate law firm like a lot of these other Democratic nominees do. And
well, she did some time in the corporate. She did some corporate time. I don't listen. We have to be,
but
very,
to the
very
degree
frank.
that others did. I mean, there's a lot of Supreme Court, or there's a lot of lawyers that will do a little bit of their time in public works or as a prosecutor, and then they'll cash in at a corporate law firm.
Well, the thing is interesting is she did corporate work, but while she did corporate work, the type of corporate work she did was very counter-majoritarian, even in the corporate capacity. Like, she represented the ACLU. She represented people that were representing, like, people who were being, like, tortured in Guantanamo. So, right. She was very strategic. I mean, this is going to, a lot of my comrades on the left will be like, oh, come on, man, you're playing this up too much. But I'm going to be very honest. She carries a comportment that is more conservative than her legal and jurisprudential experience. In other words, he was very adept. My personal opinion of Ketanji Brown Jackson is that I don't think this is a woman, some kind of like hardcore right-wing hammer and sickle toting leftist. Though that would be great for my politics. I don't believe that. I think that she comes from a middle class Miami background. Both of her parents were historically Black college and university graduates. I know where she grew up in Miami, and I believe that she grew up with an understanding that, like, the law, has its good parts, but there are people who are not benefiting from the system. The system is unjust.
I think that is exactly the thing and I think you can see that is reflected in the skepticism she had that led her to become a defense attorney at that time, because she was sitting on a sentencing board.
Oh, this is a very important point. I'm glad you brought that up.
And she realized that I'm only seeing one perspective of this, and I'm not seeing the receiving end. Like, she was basically, within the context of our criminal system, she was the rider, and she basically said, well, I want to get the perspective of the horse. And,
right.
and I think you can see that throughout her career, which in this day and age, where you have people who are immersed in basically their oxygen is comes from one sort of self-enclosed loop that is recycling the air. The ability for her to seek that out suggests to me that her response on the court is going to be essentially, in very broad strokes, for the underdog. And if that modus operandi, works not just within the context of the criminal cases that they'll hear, but also in the economic cases that they're going to hear, that's going to be very, very helpful, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, Lindsey Graham, he said something that was actually true, and the fact that he was pissed off about it actually made me feel good. He was like, "Yeah, the progressives are really happy about this pick. Biden's really got the brand." I was like, "Yeah, you're right," because the progressives almost never get a pick that they're happy about. There's no reason to. You compare her to who our current attorney general is, who Obama wanted to pick, and was that Merrick Garland? Garland, I mean, in my circles, he'd be called a right winger.
Right. Just a corporate, straight down the middle corporate, he was a
very
riot.
frank with you. I mean, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, Sotomayor." Sotomayor is not a left justice at all.
No.
Not by any stretch of the imagination. She was a prosecutor, and even besides that, she did massive amounts of time in corporate firms. And even if you look at her decisions, it's only in the most extreme of cases she dissents. And you look at some of her financial regulatory rulings, it's not exactly particularly left at all.
Right. And let's just address, because I know this was out there too, that people, question, was there was a case, I think it was with Boeing, and it was a tort. It was a labor law
this
case.
is really
go into this, because I've looked at this and I have spent an inordinate amount of time interviewing tort lawyers over the past 10, 15 years, having had worked with one of the biggest, mass torts lawyers in the country, and am very familiar with this branch of the law, more so than I think that my dad would have wanted me to be at one point. But talk about this case, because
this was basically
being spun in a way that it was problematic, and I actually think that it was not at all.
It was not problematic at all. I mean, this is a sad reality. First of all, the fact that of all of the complaints that anyone who is left of center has about this woman comes down to one case should pretty much tell you how weak their case is.
Right.
That this is the only thing they can find is this one case. Basically, there was a case, I believe it was against Boeing. It was a major corporation that was engaged in some type of discriminatory or some kind of tort type of legal lawsuit against Black employees or Black workers. Okay. And she made an adjudication, basically, that was based on a technical aspect about the size of a class for the case. It wasn't on the substantive merits to say these people are baseless in their suit. Basically, what she was saying is that the way in which the class structured itself would deny other members who potentially could be in the class to become aware of their right to damage. And because of the way she decided the case, it did have a negative effect on those who were the plaintiffs in the case in a certain way. But it wasn't on the substantive merits to say that these people have no grounds to sue, or, this is ridiculous. It was basically a technicality around the issue of the way in which a class in a case of that nature is determined.
And my understanding is that the Supreme Court had made it, had narrowed the ability of people to form it as a class. And there were actually two aspects of her ruling. One was that based upon the way the Supreme Court had structured it, the 5,600 or so employees wouldn't constitute a class for the purposes of torts. But also, people who were included in that 5,600 were unaware that they had been included in it.
Correct.
And had they gone forward as a class, would have not had the opportunity to pursue their own cases that may be far more egregious than they would have gotten from those 5,600. And, and so, and there are times where aggressive tort lawyers want to have as big a class as possible because they want to make some, money. And often this is good. Often, sometimes it can be bad. And so that was it. It was like you say, not on the merits of what exactly took place between Boeing and these workers.
Is this the Lockheed? Was it Lockheed
Maybe
Martin?
it was Lockheed Martin.
Yeah,
maybe
okay,
it
that's
wasn't
what I was a
Boeing.
little
It was
confused.
I knew it was an airline. But okay, so be that as it may, we've said that. What are the implications of the pick insofar as like all well and good that she is but she's going to be writing dissents, right? Like it's all going to be dissents unless there's a bus accident at one point or whatever.
Well, I mean, listen, I don't think we necessarily need to be so I mean, these people get old, right? I mean, Clarence Thomas was sick. He was in the hospital. I'm not saying we're wishing death on these people. What I'm saying is that, like, we don't know what can happen. Someone
Right.
can sick, someone can die, someone can get, there's a variety of things that can happen. Currently, the makeup of the court is 6'3", so she's replacing a judge who is one of the three. So obviously, yes, she's not going to sway the numbers significantly at this time. But she's 51 years old. She can easily do another 25, 30 years on the court. We don't know what can happen in, 1, 2, or 3 presidential administrations. We don't know what's going to happen on the current Biden administration. I mean, we have a couple of Supreme Court justices who get ill, so on and so forth. Who knows? But in terms of the law school, I was in law school at Boston University. She was at Harvard. She is cognizant of the shift that the court has taken in the last 50 years. And she's also alive to who Clarence Thomas is. She's alive to who Scalia was. She's alive to what the Rehnquist court was about. And of course, she's not going to say this in terms of her interrogation in front of the Senate. I'm sure she has an understanding of what these people's worldview is. And I'm also sure she's very much prepared to challenge them when she has to.
And compare that to Stephen Breyer, right? I mean, Stephen Breyer was indicative of a really old school mentality from, I think, left-leaning justices that still cling to this mythical notion of the court and its function, as opposed to reckoning with like the extreme activist wing of of judges right now that are wreaking havoc on our institutions, etc.
Right. The thing is, all right. I mean, I don't. Because of my politics as a leftist, someone who has kind of a dialectical materialist, yes, I studied law, but I mean, basically, I look at the law and I look at the judicial system as an institution that's designed to protect capital and the interests of capital, because my analysis tells me that the role of the American government is to protect the interests of capital and not to represent the needs of its people, because if we had a government that represented the needs of the people, we wouldn't have to fight capital so much to protect the needs of the people.
I want to ask you about the political implications of this, but I first have to ask you, did you have Clark Bice at BU?
Clark Bice was my contracts professor.
Clark Bice was my contracts professor there too. I went to BU for a year. When were you there?
I started there in 92. I took some time to get out.
Oh, damn. I was there in 90 and then I left. I only was there for a year, but we could have been going at the same time. I had no idea. But Clark Bice we got to talk about that.
Clark Bice, for those people who don't know, allegedly is the contracts professor who the character Kingsfield is based on by the famous movie. What's the name of the movie?
Paper Chase.
Paper Chase.
Yes.
And he literally said that in my class. Here's a dime. Go call your mother. You're not going to be a lawyer.
Yes. 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 He said to me at one point, I raised my hand in class, and he said, I'm not going to call on Mr. Seder because I know what he's going to say is going to be divisive, insidious, and derisive. And I was always sort of like very, I wore that. Obviously, it's one of the few things I remember from
Clark Bice was also the contracts professor for Antonin Scalia.
Yeah.
I actually asked him, I said, what kind of student was Scalia? He's like, I don't think it would be proper for me to talk about that, Mr. Robert.
Yes. All right. Well, we've got to talk more about that. But give me your sense of the political implications of this pick.
Well, the political implications is that now we are in a period of the reactionary right. You could argue the right has always been reactionary, but we do have a kind of contemporary iteration of the right that is kind of like, to use a slang phrase that's very popular in Miami, off the meat racks, if you will, in terms of the right wing nature of its posturing. And they're going to throw a hissy fit, and I think that they're going to try to, maybe in policy or in temperament, say, okay, you got yours, and hold this long-term down the line for federal judiciary picks or judicial picks in general. Maybe Biden, if he has a few more picks. Biden has had a in opposition to the way Obama was a snail in picking judges. Biden has been pretty good in filling the seats. In terms,
he's at a pace that's even faster than Trump's. Is my understanding.
Trump was knocking him out the park, as a matter of fact. Right. So Biden is doing pretty good, which should be expected, right? Biden was on the Judicial Committee for like years when he was a senator. So,
and there's also, I think there was a concerted effort. We've interviewed Brian Fallon on this program from Demand Justice, which was brought up as like a boogeyman and was against Durbin sitting on as chair, has been applying pressure. And he was a former Obama, staffer who basically said, we blew it. And in terms of,
I hate when they say that stuff. They didn't blow it. They strategically did that to appease the institutions that they were representing, which were the banks and finance capital.
I honestly believe that they were just, they made a political calculation that they did not want to expend their energy on the courts. I mean, we could debate that as to whether, but whether they purposely left, that empty, and they seem wholly unprepared even before they got elected. Maybe that was, but
well, listen, we don't have to deliberate on this. I don't cut the Obama presidency was the most curated presidential administration we've had in this country probably in the last 50 years. All right. This guy was created in a petri dish to be president. He had been siphoned off since he was at Harvard Law School. He was hanging out with what's the guy's name who was eventually he was with the Secretary of Treasury. I forgot his name,
Rubin.
but he was Rubin, he was connected to Rubin early on. This guy is in 2006. He's going to Rubin's Hamilton Foundation, talking about, I have a whole piece I wrote for Black Agenda Report on Barack Obama, Wall Street's perfect Manchurian candidate. This guy was in the pipe long before he became president. As a matter of fact,
his entire cabinet was outlined by a guy named Froman, who was a Citigroup executive and ended up being the top trade guy. I mean, I agree with all of that, but they could have also put in bank-friendly federal judges, and they just didn't fill any of the seats. I mean, they could have. If they wanted to put in very banker-friendly judges, they could have done it. They didn't even do that.
I think that you're correct on your face in that regard, but they still had to maintain the charade of we're Democrats. Like they can only play the game so far. I mean, they could have filled with a bunch of Merrick Garlands if they wanted.
That's my point. Is that that's why I think it was just simply a question of competence and perception of the judiciary, because they could have filled all these seats. They presumed, right? They didn't presume that Donald Trump would get in and have all like 100 of these empty.
I think that was purely plausible deniability for them. You're talking about a guy who was a constitutional law professor. I'm not buying that they were like, oh, I guess we forgot that the Supreme Court and the federal judiciary is important as a president. After Bush, after all the scandals with the Bush administration right before him, in terms of some of his Supreme Court picks, listen, I'm not saying that they should have revved it up like Trump, but I mean, these guys understand the way in which, particularly since the rise of Bork and the birth of the Federalist Society, it has been an agenda of the right to stack the courts.
Well, Brian, let's put it this way. Brian Fallon, that's his story. And I think that part of what has been, there has been the reason why we're seeing better picks from Biden, which better and more numerous than were under Obama, is a blowback from the Obama
Failure.
administration, and in some instances from people who actually were were staff there. Maybe they have their public story and their private story are different, but be that as it may. So let me ask you this: what did you think in terms of the political value, strictly political value, in terms of like the midterm elections? Because my sense is it was an abject failure on part of the Democrats.
I'm going to be very transparent with you, Sam. I think that Biden dropped the ball by making this about identity politics at all in the first place. Listen, if Biden knew that he was going to pick a black woman, he should have never announced it. He said nothing about it, kept it quiet who his pick was, and then when the time comes, boom, that's fine. Because he basically set her up to be viewed pejoratively without justification. You got degenerates like Tucker Carlson saying, well, I want to see her LSAT scores. I'm like, Tucker, this woman probably has more intellectual qualifications than you to do your job. You prick.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. And it was, I mean, he announced this on the campaign trail, and I think it's just and it clearly didn't work. I mean, if you look at just numbers, I mean, maybe the Biden would have lost even more, but maybe he needed to do that to like assure, black voters like, hey, despite my history of being, sort of racist-y a little bit, I'm not going to do that. But it seems to me that at least in the context of, why not exceed expectations?
This is a guy who knew at a certain point he was going to have the first black female vice president. Why did he need to play that game?
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, I want to, we're running close to time, but let's talk a little bit about, I had a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about, but that was a fascinating conversation, and not the least of which to find out that you went to BU law school, which is funny. But let's talk a little bit about Adams. You had a piece on the mayor. We were just spoke about him yesterday. He's doing a campaign that involves Florida. He is using New York City tax dollars to rent out 4 billboards throughout Florida state, the state of Florida. I don't know, maybe it's not that much, and maybe to criticize the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida that is now law, and to invite, I guess, gay Floridians or all Floridians to move back to New York. But just give us your broad sense of Adams, and maybe you can include your perspective on that.
Well, listen, if you can indulge me with a couple of minutes,
please.
To talk about Eric Adams, as I did in that piece you saw, the video I did with Ben Dixon, I'd like to put him in the context of the evolution of the black political class in the last 50 years. Real quick, I'm going to try to make it as fast as possible. Hey, if I can do 200 years of Haitian history, I can do this. So in the last 50 plus years, we've had the evolution of the post-civil rights black political class. They've gone through basically 4 iterations of change. The first iteration of the black political class, and what is the black political class? These are the elected officials, as well as the ideological superstructure around the civil rights organizations, the churches, and the membership organizations that create the kind of political options that exist in black communities that channel black voters into supporting traditionally the Democratic Party and largely the more corporate kind of conservative faction of the Democratic Party in exchange for patronage, which I pejoratively call fatback and biscuits, that they dole out to their constituencies to maintain that fealty. Okay, so we know Clyburn, the Congressional Black Caucus, the civil rights organizations, the black churches, HBCUs, fraternities, sororities, links, Freemasons, they all make up the ideological superstructure that is the black political class. The first iteration of the black political class in the 70s, because they're coming out of the movement era, black power era, they had to at least have the illusion of redistributive politics. So as a result, you would get, the traditional kind of more neoliberal friendly black mayors, but they had to at least initiate politics because there was still a kind of radical black politics on the grassroots level where they would give people things. They would basically, like you get your Maynard Jacksons, Andrew Youngs, and they're actually redistributing some policy to people. All right. in the next iteration, you have the urban regimes of the 80s. Because these guys are coming in when neoliberalism is in full swing, they're basically governing cities that are in majority, in austerity. Excuse me. Sam is old enough as I am to remember where there was a time in America where you feel like damn near every city in America had a black mayor. You're like, what's going on here? It's like everywhere. You need New York, Atlanta, Chicago, you had Tom Bradley in LA. But what happens is that because most of these cities were coming out of economic precarity in the 70s, they had to basically do austerity for working class people and surrender to pro-growth neoliberal policies that helped the banking and real estate division. And as a result, because of the economic precarity, increase in mass incarceration because of crime, and also the influence of crack, a lot of these guys are overseeing mass incarceration in the administration and the cutting of government services for the poor, who disproportionately are black people. This is also happening at a time where underclass ideology, which basically renders black poor people to being unable to function in American society, is becoming popular. That's the second iteration of the black political class. Third, we have the rise of neoliberalism with the DLC, Democratic Leadership Council, that comes out in the 80s with Clinton, which takes neoliberalism, which is a fancy word for pro-corporate, pro-marketization, pro-capitalist, pro-big business. We get it. Charter schools, et cetera, so on and so forth. Democrats take that and double down on it, and frankly, in some ways, do things that are worse than Republicans. NAFTA, GATT, financial deregulation, you name it. I think you guys in your audience are pretty much familiar with that pivot. Black politics is always a reflection of the nature on which capitalism is in American society. And as a result, the black political class, out of fear of Newt Gingrich, pivots and embraces neoliberalism, particularly John Lewis, who people think is a wonderful civil rights leader that Bruce Dixon, my mentor, couldn't stand because he was one of the original signatories of the Democratic Leadership Conference, and no one ever talks about that, as a matter of fact. But moving on, in that period of time, the 25 some odd year period of neoliberal Democrats, we get the rise of what some would call the true neoliberal black politicians. As Bruce Dixon and Glenn Ford used to tell me, there was a trial balloon of like 5 candidates to become the first black president, all with the same background: Cory Booker, Adrian Fenty, Hal Ford Jr., Arthur Davis, and Barack Obama. All elite Ivy League or Ivy League proximate, all pro-corporate charter school, all heavily financed by finance capital. And basically, they were the model of what was desired to take black politics into a full embrace of this pivot to capitalism that starts in the late 70s, gets worse in the 80s, it gets worse in the 90s, where black politics basically becomes surrendered to serving totally the corporate forces, right? We have Obama. Obama is seen by many people in the black community as a failure. 35% of black wealth lost. No recompense from the Obama administration. You have Black Lives Matter. You have all of these things going on. Black folks getting shot in the face on Facebook, and people are like, what's going on? And all of a sudden, there's this like new rise of black consciousness in the face of this black president who people thought was supposed to be the post-racial president. So what happens is that during that period of time, as we all know, probably one of the reasons we have the rise of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders presents an ideological shift in the Democratic Party, in that 35% of the party is hardcore left, embracing socialism. And what happens is that in the face of the rise of this left, even though most black people are not embracing that politics, the black political class is threatened because their whole purpose is to leverage the illusion of racial progressivism that they carry from being the inheritors of the civil rights movement to actually, as a pretext, to cover their fealty to corporate politics. So because you have progressives now, you have AOC, Sanders, who are calling them out, they're in jeopardy. What is Eric Adams, to get to the point? Eric Adams is basically tap dancing, threading the needle between both phenomenon, the neoliberal corporate pro-Wall Street types like the Obamas, and the charade and facade of rhetorical progressivism that is popular with the woke kids in order to keep I'm a vegan, we can't persecute the gays. I was like, we can't be too hard on drill rap. Come on now. I talk to the kids, which is all a facade because Eric Adams is also highly financed by the real estate development corporations. He's publicly, the New York Post had a really great article talking about Chuck Gasparino. I'm sure you guys know who Charlie Gasparino is. Mm-hmm. Hardcore, blowhard, Fox News, corporate, Wall Street parasite, who was like, yeah, I love Eric Adams. He said, we need more of you Wall Street guys and less of these AOC types. So this is a guy who is purely down with the pro-Wall Street, pro-growth politics. He wants Wall Street to do well in New York, and he's willing to acquiesce to them. But because he understands that him and the black political class are competing with the lingering, existing kind of progressive kind of AOC faction. He's got to dance a dance. But because of the COVID crime waves, he's able to come in and say, this soft on crime approach isn't working. And unfortunately, one of the consequences of that COVID crime wave is that I'm worried that the anti-carceral, which basically means the anti-mass incarceration politics that we had started with the millennium, that when people were basically challenging mass incarceration, I think that might go to the wayside. And I think it's possible that we might actually see another reboot of mass incarceration again, if not from Biden, maybe the next president.
Well, I think that's when you say the tough on crime part, that's, I think, the third wrinkle really to him as well, is that he was a cop. He came up with this kind of rhetoric in his political career about being tough on crime, speaking directly to communities about, like, this is why you're not able to get ahead. And I think that makes him unique, particularly in, like, this exact period. He might have not been able to win except for in this post-COVID era.
Right.
Let me ask you about that, about where we are, about the fifth iteration, I guess, of the black political class. I mean, I think, there were two moments where I sort of came to the understanding on some level this dynamic of the fourth iteration, like some vote that Gregory Meeks took back in like 2005 or 6, when I'm like, wait, what? And then having a run-in with an Obama fundraiser who turned out to be on like what are the Forbes top 10 black wealth guys in the country, and him telling me that the CBC was in favor of rolling back the estate tax. And
right.
wait, what? And because there is a sort of like a presumption, or at least there's a projection, that these are some of the most progressive members of the Democratic Party. But
they pimp out their allegiance to the civil rights movement, and the members, some of them are actually being members of it, and also the charade, the politics, the racial bigotry of low expectations. Because you're black, of course you're going to be progressive. You care about the poor. Yeah, don't believe that crap. That's not always the case at all.
No, I know, I understand that at this point, but I think there was a just sort of default position that, like, if I'm representing Queens, I'm going to be a progressive member of the House. And I'm
man. The New York City Black CBC delegation, these guys are laced with Hakeem Jeffries. Are you joking me?
No. I know. Yes, I'm talking. This was 15 years ago for me when I sort of came to these conclusions. But where are we in that cycle? Like, is there any indication of a fifth iteration of the black political class that is returning to its, maybe
70s version of redistribution? Yeah. I wish I could be so optimistic, because what we're seeing, right, is that there's a generational fracture, schism, if you will. The under 40 and working class and generational. Under 40 black folk, college educated or not, and more working class black people are tired of the symbolism. They're tired of the empty neoliberal politics. They're getting no return on investment for it. And they're more alive to the charade of the symbolism because of basically the belief in the phase of the Obama presidency, and they're not signing on to it. More black professional managerial class or black petit bourgeois, over 45, older 50 types, they're still enamored with the, Ketanji Brown Jackson, pictures of her with with little girls like walking to school, but like, oh, one day I can, all of that crap, which, by the way, great book I'm reading right now. We Have No Leaders, African Americans in the Post-Civil Rights Era. Robert C. Smith is a political scientist. In this book, he talks about how the Democratic Party strategically realized, particularly in the 80s, that when they were in power, they did not have to worry about giving redistributive policy to black people as long as they used symbolism in leaders or candidates to get black folk to say, like, we're going to have the first black this, the first black that. So this is not an accidental thing. This is a strategy.
Yeah, I mean,
Are you saying there was insincerity when they took the knee? When they all took the knee, and when Nancy
Yes,
Pelosi took
the kente cloth and Nancy Pelosi and all that. You didn't think you weren't moved by that, Pascal?
No, I would have been moved, but I don't want to say what I would have been moved to. But anyway.
Your bowels were moved.
Yeah.
But sorry, not to be. We're discussing. Hey, it's Casual Friday. I mean, I guess like in terms of the intersectionality of the politics, the only person that comes to mind really is Cory Bush as somebody who.
Well,
could,
you know, let's be fair. There is some hopes. We have India Walton I think that the sister from Ohio, Bernie Sanders surrogate. I can't believe I don't remember her name.
Nina Turner.
Nina Turner. I mean, I like Nina Turner. I have some questions about her charter school politics, but she generally is a progressive. The problem I have is that these folks are just getting killed by the Black political class, man. They just kneecap them all the time, and they're not really capturing the political imagination of large numbers of Black voters. And what's becoming very scary, and I wanted to mention this, right? There is a pivot among a small segment of Black folk to actually embrace conservatism, particularly a small coterie of Black males who would just feel like the Democratic Party is not talking to them at all, who are really buying this like Booker T. Washington, that's up from slavery, pick up your bootstraps, kind of like, we can do it on our own, don't trust the government politics. Because, I mean, if you ever go on social media and you see the way these young guys, you're talking about young men under 30, under 35, are embracing people like Thomas Sowell, Glenn Loury, all these like Manhattan Institute Foundation, Heritage Foundation funded, like mercenaries of Black misery who are touted out to appeal to kind of old classical Black nationalist notions of like, it was the government that messed things up for everyone, but we were on our own picking cotton, things were wonderful. These guys who play up on this nonsensical kind of like, romancing Jim Crow idiocy, they have a small resurgence in segments of Black constituencies. And I think that one of the things we may have to worry about, don't forget, Trump did get 17% of Black male votes. So what I'm saying is that there's a possibility. And again, not to be overly kind of harsh, but the Democratic Party, quite frankly, has done nothing to deal with the material realities of Black people in my lifetime, quite frankly. It's been they have more effectively doubled down on the worst of neoliberalism, frankly, particularly in the anti-poverty policies, from mass incarceration, gutting the FDC under Clinton, financial deregulation that led to the subprime that Black people were devastated with. And the sad reality is that when you have over 90% of the Black electorate that is forced into one political party, there's no reason to pay attention to them because they're considered a captured audience.
Yeah, I am reminded of two things. One, I had the late Glenn Ford on the program back in 2012, arguing he had written a piece that
the most effective evil.
Yes, exactly. And Mark Maron, who in the run up to the 2008 election had a joke that has always stayed with me about Obama, which was that finally, for the first time in the history of our country, Black Americans will have the opportunity to get screwed by one of their own. And
it's not the first time; it's the first time it's made public.
Well, there you go. I mean, it is. I don't know if we're, I mean, I wonder if we're going to see, sort of some change in that construct. I guess I am increasingly of the mind that it's a generational problem on some level, and we're not going to see, that meaningful change for another 10, 15 years, maybe, when we have a different leadership in, both. I mean, in all of these sort of like spheres on some level. And, I guess maybe it's good that we have KBJ there. 20 years from now, she'll be able to hopefully sit on the majority of the court, and they won't block some of these redistributional changes.
Well, I think we on the left and, or those who are left of center, we have to take some blame because we have not effectively penetrated the ideological superstructures that exist in these communities. I'm not the smartest person in the world who doesn't know this crap. The Democrats know all this stuff. They know how black politics works. Okay, they know how these institutions work. The progressives, listen, Bernie can talk. Bernie knows how this works. His people know how this works.
Well, do you think that they, I mean, there seemed to be some awareness of how to penetrate, but didn't necessarily wasn't the greatest of efforts. Like, I mean, I think in particularly with like the Clyburns, I don't know how much of an effort was made there.
Well, I mean, listen, it's going to be hard. I think that concentrating on the under 40 generation will be the most effective way, because they were the ones who were more pro Sanders anyway. Right. And I think that it's going to need recruiting people like India Walton, like Nina Turner, or people who are in that line, who are more familiar with those spaces, who can actually motivate with a kind of grassroots appeal to these communities, who know what the black churches are like, who know what the fraternity sorority graduate chapter picnic is going to be like, who know what the HBCU homecoming is going to be like, to actually be able to kind of penetrate this type of politics. It's going to take a lot of work, but I think that the sad condition of the left that we're in today after the 2020 election is that organizing is something like we seem like we've given up and surrendered it to people like Steve Bannon, who's having organizational mechanisms across the country motivate right wingers to, like, teaching black history in school, support, anti-gay, anti-abortion legislation. So people will make the argument that, like, oh, well, political organizing doesn't work anymore and we're beyond mass politics. I find that interesting because it's working for the right. The right is using mass politics, and they're doing a great job of it. They're basically taking tactics that the left has used to implement a right-wing agenda.
Pascal Robert, folks can check out This Is Revolution on YouTube or wherever your podcasts are served.
Yep, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Well, I shouldn't say Spotify. Oh, anything you can find podcast apps at This Is Revolution. And I'm on Twitter at PRobert06 at Twitter. You can Google my work and
at Robert06.
Yeah, at PRobert06. The last name 06 is my Twitter handle.
Okay. What happened to it? Was 1 through 5 taken?
06. It's a fraternity thing. My fraternity was founded in 1906, and that was like our call sign is 06. That's why.
All right, got it. All right. Well, it was great having you. Really appreciate you coming on.
No
want to
problem.
talk to you about the BU Law School someday. I get
No
some
problem.
funny stories about Vice. All right. We got to take a little break here. And well, yeah, we'll go into the fun half.
Right.
Yeah.
Folks, just a reminder, it's your support that makes the show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajority.report.com. When you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, though you can always go and check out the podcast description. We keep all the deals that you get in there. You also get the fun half, and you get stuff like, did we post it? The Brooklyn show.
Brooklyn show is up for in
Check
the podcast
out that
feed.
Brooklyn show. First off, you get that really just smear job. I don't even know why we included that. It was ridiculous by
Trying
Ronald
to be
Reagan.
transparent.
Yes, that's true. I'm not afraid of those type of smears at all. So we posted that Ronald Reagan smear job he did. The amazing David Feldman correspondence from
God.
Ukraine. And then we also had Jack Crosby, who had been in Ukraine.
It was also good.
Yeah,
It was
but
also good.
Feldman
Not as good as
Feldman
Feldman.
was more in Ukraine.
We had a comment. I don't want to reveal what happened, but we had a comment from John from San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
We had Gustavo Rivera and Nomi Const and
really good
Matt and Brandon were there. And what else? And we had some.
Binder was also there.
Yeah, Matt Binder. That's fine.
Oh, that was.
Yeah. Obviously, you were there.
I was there. Yeah.
Emma was there.
Mm-hmm.
So check it out, folks. Become a member today. Get that. And I will tell you right now, in terms
Bradley
of
was
Boston,
there too.
Oh, Bradley was there too. Sorry. Yeah, you popped up. You popped up on stage. And also, you can go into the member feed of that on our blog and watch the video, which will be embedded there. right?
And then the link, it's linked to in the description of the podcast.
Linked in the description of the podcast for members. And I should tell you right now, we are not going to be able to live stream Boston. We can't. The Wilbur does not have the ability to do that. The Bell House developed it during COVID. It didn't exist before. We will not be able to do that at Wilbur. So, majority live.
So if you want to come, you got to come.
Yep.
I mean, if you want to watch, you got to come. That's
the way it's got to go.
Yeah.
Matt, what's happening in the Matt Lekian media universe?
Yeah, Wednesday night we had Wosny Lambre on to talk about the basketball, talk a little bit about the playoffs, but we also talk about the player empowerment era of players deciding to pick where they want to play and what sort of political activism they want to do, and how that relates to the maintenance of control of the labor force by the NBA capitalists. So patreon.com/Left Reckoning to get the post game there.
Folks, see you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's.
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello? Is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? Oh, no sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports.
We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Who libertarians?
They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35. 501. 1/2. 3/8.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400. $1,900.
5, 4, $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
Call it satire. Sam goes, it's satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. What happened to our cameras? Not synced.
What do you mean?
All of a sudden, your cameras.
I think it was this way the whole time. Earlier.
You got to drop yours a little bit.
Okay.
It's a little weird, right? Isn't it? There we go. There we go. Oh, wait. Wait, you know what? Our remotes are acting on each other. Hold on.
Sorry for cursing. Yeah. All right, I'm not moving me, so because.
How's that? That's better.
Is it?
Isn't it?
Well, you're higher, so I guess that's better.
Yeah, it's a little better.
And more zoomed out, so your imperfections are
How's that?
less obvious.
That looks like it's working, right?
Right. I can control your camera. Oh, damn it, it's mine.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Let's zoom out a little bit for you.
Why does it change every time?
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start off Casual Friday Fun Half with my new favorite song. It is, of course, sung by Governor Ron DeSantis.
Obviously.
And musicians Johnny and Donnie Van Zandt.
Dave Rubin volunteered to be in the chorus, and they're like, "No, we're okay. You can stay home."
We'll talk a little bit about Dave Rubin. I mean, this poor guy. I'm starting to feel bad for Dave Rubin a little bit, but
It's like, he shook my hand. It wasn't a big deal. I even said I was there with my husband, so he's not like he's an anti-gay guy.
no.
And yet they wouldn't let me play the cymbal.
Did
for
he
the
really
song.
want to play in this or no?
No, I'm joking.
Yeah,
But
but
yeah.
Well, I mean, it rings true because it feels like everybody has turned their back on Dave Rubin. We have images of like what it looks like on the places where he has where he's doing live shows.
His ticket
Maybe we'll
sales.
show that in a bit, his ticket sales. But here, let's listen to this, folks. When you're running for Republican president, you've got to have a horrible song that you're involved in.
Chart out everything to really actually go through it and play it.
Oh, good.
So
That's
very
exciting.
cool. It's a little different than what you've heard on
Okay.
the iPhone. So
Good.
now I was asking them, do you like listening to it loud?
Yeah, however you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just push play.
I believe so, sir.
Okay. All right. Here we go. You want to hear it?
Yeah.
It's a little different.
Oh, are we going to get dinged for this?
The press don't like him, but it sure does get my business. He stands up for what he
Oh my God. I'm going to.
So don't come down here trying to change things. We're doing all right in the Sunshine State. Stay out of our business, leave our gov alone.
Pause it. This is the you Yankees coming down here telling us what to do with our riots, the way that we treat our people. It's nice. It's nice that we've recovered from the well, it's not so much the Civil War. We haven't recovered from really the beginning of the country. It's really what's going on here. What's going to be the sweet what? Go ahead. Sweet Florida.
When does DeSantis say?
I can't. You got to stop it.
Doesn't DeSantis sing? False advertising, Bradley. I thought he sang in this one.
He's just loving it. He's just
Okay.
Can you Google Bush was right, please?
Oh my God.
Can we play this song? This Johnny come lately with the Sweet Florida. No. The best of this genre was Bush was right. Do we have it? Here it is. Yep.
I love the hard zooms.
Freedom in Afghanistan, say goodbye Taliban, free elections in Iraq, Saddam Hussein locked up. Osama staying underground, Al-Qaeda now is finding out America won't turn and run once the fighting has begun. Libya turns over news, Lebanese want freedom too, Syria's forced to leave. Don't you know that all this means Bush was right?
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, folks. I had to introduce you to that. That song, the music's still great. The lyrics are a little bit, and time has not been kind to that assessment of the Bush administration, freedom in Afghanistan, and the Taliban gone, and
But I do love how it's like kind of a time capsule of the music that was coming out in that era. I mean, you think like that they were like, or Green Day, but for Bush.
Yes, but what's worse is that mentality. Like, I mean, that existed, and that was that someone could put that out at any time, and like not almost be arrested or
Yeah.
like that was such a prominent feature. And even that little riff, like the that is
It's
where the
nana
whole
poo poo.
own the liberals. That was the whole own the liberals mentality in the conservative movement there. Was neener type of thing.
Yeah, thank
And,
God that's gone.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's my point, is that was the beginning of that, on some level, of that specific, I guess, definitional quality of conservative thought.
Also got to be a bit of a reaction to the Dixie Chicks too.
Maybe it was a little bit, but I mean, it was permeating, and then there was that green, what's that, Lee Greenwood song, "We'll put a boot in your ass," and America's, and so what's
Don't
old
come
is
down.
new again, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that.
I have a clip. It's not really like super appropriate, but Jeremy Renner singing. That's what it reminded me of in
Oh
the
my
studio.
God.
Same headphones here.
Who's this dude?
He's
It's the actor Jeremy
you'd know
Renner.
him from Marvel.
Oh, okay.
The bull, I gotta tell you, never be the same. Heaven don't have a name.
Okay. Wow.
He has his own band. Might be doing that full time because I think there are some nasty allegations against him. Just saying.
Is that right?
A full-time musician.
Hey. Train boy. Kavanaugh isn't white. He's Irish. Rank and file. Too quiet. I don't know what that means.
I'm down to Gorsuch.
Well, how is Izquierdas Mejor? Did I say that right?
Izquierda es mejor.
Izquierdas es mejor.
Left is best. Right now.
Oh, the "Boot in Your Ass" song was done by Toby Keith. From one music nerd to another, I absolutely adore how the instruments are panned and the new Cinco Sanders single. It's a great vibe listening to the drums in one headphone and most of the other instruments in the other. Spy Trance. Pascal is one of my favorite voices on the left. Thank you for having him back on. Militant apathy. Yeah, Pascal Robert is a professional hater. All he does is shit on elected black politicians of the South while safely ensconced in New York. F that guy. I'll catch you all Monday, bro.
I'm pretty sure he's in Miami.
He's in Florida. He's in Miami.
And yeah, I saw that that was written before he even came on, and he had a very measured analysis of KBJ. So thanks.
Surfer Bernie bro. Portside is best, dudes. Reformed gambler. Don't bring back La Poupée. I am sorry. No more bad calls from me. I promise. Reformed gambler from Jamaica. Kinetic response. Please ask Pascal why he's so hard on black folks. Tommy Fink. Happy Casual Friday, folks. Sorry to hear about your son's illness. Hope he's feeling better. He is. Certain sections of Dem leadership would be well advised to look at what happened to the liberal Democrats here in Britain after they broke their promises regarding tuition fees. Next election, they were reduced from 57 seats in Parliament to about 8. Let's put up this graphic. Morning Consult did a poll of specifically the people who received the child tax credit. This was a tax credit that was delivered on a monthly basis in a way that in the past we hadn't done. In the past, you simply get it all in one bulk thing. It expanded who was eligible. It also increased payments up to $300 per child. They looked at Democrats. They looked at the recipients of the child tax credit payments. When they were getting these payments, they were up. There was congressional Democrats had a 12-point generic ballot lead over the Republicans in December, 4 months ago, among recipients of the expanded child tax credit. The benefit ended, and now congressional Republicans have a slight advantage with that group of voters.
Yeah, and it's not correlation equals causation, right? There are a bunch of things that happened during that time period, but that is
That's stunning.
That's a factor, 100%.
And I will say this too. I agree with you that you can't necessarily know that there's causation there, but if you look at all voters, go ahead, go back up, scroll that back up, please. If you look at all voters, there has not been much change in that period of time with all voters.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's something unique in the opinions that changed and that were started off differently with the recipients of child tax credit payments over those 3 months. Now, it could have been something else, but that's pretty striking. I mean, if you look at that all voters difference there, you'll see that there's virtually no difference in all voters between December and April.
Yeah. So do you think that some recipients of the child tax credit vote in purple districts?
I think it's very possible.
Good. So all those purple district Democrats that were having panic attacks about maybe Build Back Better being a little bit slowed down because the progressives were insisted on passing those two things together. We have to get infrastructure done. We have to get infrastructure done a year out from when our election is. We need to get it done now so that they know that we're getting things done. Wait, it actually might affect you when the material benefits of the COVID relief that weren't extended through Build Back Better, that's going to have an effect in your district too. And then I'm sure they'll blame defund the police.
But this is a really important point that I think, doesn't get enough recognition, that you can blame Manchin and Sinema. Certainly it is Joe Manchin specifically didn't want this in the Build Back Better, and it's killed the Build Back Better bill. But there was a leverage point that Democrats had with Manchin and Sinema, and that was the infrastructure bill. And there were members of the Progressive Caucus, more or less the squad, many of whom did not vote. Many of whom, I can't remember how many of the squad did not vote for the infrastructure bill for this very reason. But this is, again, a massive failure on behalf of the leadership of the Democratic Party. Just period, end of story. They had a leverage point and they gave it up. They were overconfident. Some people will say that they never wanted to pass this anyways, although I just don't understand I just don't understand when people say that, what they think the political benefit of pretending about it was. They failed. They could have theoretically put this in the infrastructure bill. They could have held off from the infrastructure bill. They failed. The leadership is bad, even on their own terms. It's not even an ideological argument. So, there it is. And this will be memory hold.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. It's going to end up being, well, they're still upset about defund the police from 3 years ago.
And the progressives are still wrong, even though they were absolutely right in this instance about Biden's agenda. It wasn't just Manchin and Sinema that killed Biden's agenda. It was everybody who thought
you didn't
arrogantly,
need that leverage point.
right? That you could, but at the same time, let's also point out that Schumer had that letter in his back pocket from Manchin this entire time on his top line number.
Yep.
So there was incompetence in many layers of the failure here.
Said earlier that we speculated that Lindsey Graham and Rand Paul refusing to dress in a manner that would allow them to vote on the floor of the Senate was a petulant, childish, moronic way of appeasing the Republican base by showing that they can be publicly disrespectful of.
I really wonder
Ketanji
what their
Brown
attire
Jackson.
was, right? Was it just,
Probably
Rand Paul,
casual Friday.
a middle finger on his t-shirt?
Yeah, it's gonna F authority, man. I got it on my t-shirt. Sorry, I can't get on the Senate floor. Well, if you have any doubt of that petulance, that like, does the conservative movement really care about like performative disrespect for Ketanji Brown Jackson? Are they really that childish? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the cool kid philosopher, one of the pillars of conservative intellectual thought in the country, the Pope of the Jews, Ben Shapiro.
Mitt Romney is from the reddest state in America. He ran for president on the 2012 Republican ticket. I see no excuse for Mitt Romney not only voting for this judicial nomination, I see no excuse for him giving it a standing ovation. I'm getting extraordinarily tired of Republicans and conservatives doing this routine where every time somebody wins a high position, is either elected to it like Barack Obama or is selected to it like Ketanji Brown Jackson, then confirmed, and this person happens to embody a philosophy that is antithetical to everything conservatives believe, they still stand up and they applaud the historic nature. Oh, the historic nature. Who cares? I mean, truly, who cares? If we are supposed to be aiming for a society in which we actually judge people based on the quality of their character and based on their politics and philosophy, the things that actually matter in politics and philosophy, then I don't understand why there are so many Republicans who feel the necessity to sort of virtue signal that, oh my gosh, we have a black woman on the Supreme Court. Oh, we have a black female vice president. We've had a black female secretary of state. We've had a black president. Like, can we get over this at a certain point? Like, when are we just say? At what point can we finally just say, let's look at the person as opposed to the intersectional characteristics? And if you're a Republican doing this, you're just as bad as Democrats who do it. Here's Kamala Harris announcing the vote, and suddenly you have Mitt Romney on his feet cheering.
All right, end it right there. You know what strikes me as interesting about his little rant there about why can't we get over these historical firsts? Like, aren't we done with the historical first? Well, obviously not. And then you have to ask yourself, why aren't we done with the historical firsts? Like, what has been going on in this country that 200 some odd years into it, 250 now we're up to, we're still dealing with these historical firsts. And he also said, aiming. At one point, didn't he use the word aiming? I mean, it's like,
in what context?
He says we're aiming for aren't we supposed to be aiming for some type of, I don't know what he's saying, racial parity or whatever it was that he was saying.
Judging on the content of their character.
Yes, but he did use the word
his character's
aiming.
Pretty dark.
And we're aiming because we're not there yet.
Yeah.
You don't have to aim for something if it's already been fired and landed on the target. And it's just fascinating how off-putting this is. Like, so annoying to Ben Shapiro that we're still
right when he goes, who cares? Who cares? It seems like you do, man. You're pretty irate about it, in fact.
And certainly Mitt Romney either thinks there are people out there who care or cares. In fact, all those people who are applauding either care or think, because they're politicians, that there are a lot of people in the country who do care.
Well, he says it's virtue signaling, right? So for him, I mean, he is right that this is performative by Mitt Romney and Susan Collins and Murkowski. He is right that sure. Romney has like vague, I'm against racism, and he walked in a Black Lives Matter protest, and that's part of his branding. I mean, I don't find that particularly brave given the broader context of his politics. But what they're there to do is to undercut Democratic critique about their partisanship, because next time there's a Republican nominee, they can turn around and say, well, we had the three good ones. This wasn't 50-50 around party lines. It's a way to disarm leftist grouping of the Republicans as like a monolith of extremism, when we should be doing that.
Yes. But I'll also say that, what else is performative was what Lindsey Graham and Rand Paul did. And in fact, what else is important, virtue signaling is many, many aspects of politics. And
all of politics, pretty much.
It's really just a question of what virtue does Ben take issue with? This
Well,
idea.
that's the real thing. Is like, what did you actually try to emphasize, all of you idiots? Is like this pedophilia stuff, which everyone thinks is insane, and also this originalism thing, which everyone's eyes gloss over and they don't really care about, except if you like work at the Fed Society. And so, like, there was nothing. There's no actual punches landed on, like, the so-called things we should all be focusing on, according to Ben Shapiro, whatever those are.
Wake me when the first Republican Jewish president is elected, and tell me that Ben Shapiro is in no way. It's completely irrelevant.
We still don't have a female. We've still never had a female president.
When are we going to get over this? When are you going to get over this?
You've said this to me before. I'm too emotional about
female
this.
Supreme Court justices, female vice president. We've had female presidential nominees. Every single time a woman gets elected president, we're going to have to go through this.
Yeah, I mean, female president of Lockheed Martin. It's kind of the same in my book. I know.
The bottom line is it's not sufficient, but it's necessary. And it is a big deal when society crosses these barriers, regardless. I mean, really?
Yeah, he's the guy who's and last thing on this, he's the guy that's the sober intellectual of the right wing, and he gets so emotional all the time about these topics.
Yeah, when
This is so annoying. Mitt Romney clapping.
When the ACA, when the Supreme Court upheld the ACA, Ben Shapiro said, "This is the greatest destruction of individual liberty since Dred Scott. This is the end of America as we know it. No exaggeration."
Huh, sounds like you got your period. I'm hormonal. I can't see straight.
Really, you're really
going blue.
Yeah,
it's Friday. I'm a little tired, so sometimes it comes out like that.
Fierce Deity. Sorry, Sam. Hate to miss Casual Friday, but the socks are on, kid. Yeah, no, I got you. Believe me.
Oh, it's opening day.
Yeah,
like in the afternoon.
1 p.m.
1 p.m.
They're on. Ben Zen 6. If there's truly a dress code on the floor of the Senate, how does Kristen Sinema get away with her outfits? Custodial artist. We all know you're not a true white guy until you boof some natty ice at Tobin's house with squeeze. It's the rite of passage. Left is best. Not my Pope. Chile is currently in the process of drafting a new constitution under recently elected left-wing President Gabriel Boric. One article that was recently approved by the Constitutional Commission was a guarantee of reproductive rights. It would be the first Latin American country to have this right included in its constitution, an epic development in a historically conservative region. Also interesting to follow will be the president's fight to include nationalization of mining in the Constitution, something that will be key and bring a lot of revenue for social and economic programs, especially since he's given the country's lithium supply.
Yeah, I mean, South American constitutions were written to foreclose on the possibility of nationalizing something like the mining industry.
Jared from Fenway. Hey, Sam, any chance of a one-off Air America staff reunion episode? Did you already ask this? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's a good idea. Lefty Luficer, are you ever going to talk about Disney World ever? Oh, yeah. I got to do that. At one point. Maybe during break. I'm off. I can get a chance. Chicago Letter Carrier. Is there any chance that you'll have any guests to talk on about the new podcast, The MLK Tapes? Very interesting series detailing many suspicious events leading up to the assassination of MLK, mainly highlighting why James Earl Ray was not the actual assassin. Hashtag deep dish is pizza.
Sounds interesting.
It does sound good.
Project Un-F the World. Hey, pizza phobes, your Android app freezes an awful lot. We're in the process of deploying a new app soon.
We're not pizza phobes.
Yeah,
You're in favor of, marinara sauce pies.
Got pizza bigots over here.
I missed this yesterday, but I saw the clip. The exploitation of child actors in Hollywood is not discussed often enough by progressives and leftists. Many grow up to have terrible problems as adults. Our own Emma Vigeland was chewed up and spit out by the movie industry. Now she's a rampant gambling addict, only able to afford cashews as sustenance.
That's
I saw
not
that.
inaccurate.
How did you get into that movie?
I mentioned this on the show. I mean, it's like the cul-de-sac, right? My house was like a old house, and so in a my parents don't live there anymore, so I can just say the town of Glen Ridge. It's like older houses, and they asked if they could film a scene at our house for
It was
this
a location scout.
location scout for the movie Mona Lisa Smile. They filmed the scene there, and then we were, my sister and I were like 7 and 4, and they asked if in a separate scene filmed here in New York, they'd want us to be the flower girls in the movie. So my mom was in it too as like a wedding patron, not patron, wedding guest, and my sister and I were in it too, and we got to like meet Julia Stiles and Julia Roberts and Kirsten Dunst. It was fun. I know it's not your storied Hollywood career, but that was my taste of it.
That was pretty impressive.
And then my mom got asked to be an extra in Elf, and she didn't do it. And that was like a movie that was filmed right after, and she really regrets that because she was on like the list of random people that would want to be extras. But if she did it 3 times, she would have been in the union.
Whoa.
Yeah. Anyway.
Mark Me Weirds. Roy Moore got 650,000 votes. Talia from Tampa. Hey, MR crew. Happy about KBJ. So here's me being an originalist judge, and I'd love your thoughts. The Supreme Court must be expanded 13 seats to fulfill the original intent and have one justice for each circuit. Yes, any protections or equality based on sex inherently protects the LGBT community for the same reasons Gorsuch laid out in Bostock. Okay, gun ownership is a community right for the sole purpose of not being able to call up an armed reserve and not an individual right. I agree with that. Judicial review should not be able to overturn federal statutes since it's not in the text of the Constitution. Am I doing this right? Have a great weekend. See y'all on Monday. Jessica 1. Hey, hi, LOL. What's up, Emma? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Is
that it?
Yep.
All right.
Obfuscated equestrian bolus. Sam, you schmuck. If you were a food, you'd be an overly processed slab of grade D beef. That reminds me, would you kindly bring your in-person entertainment services over to the Emerald City, as you possess an abundance of fans here? We have become so anxious for your arrival that our renowned brows have completely smoothed over.
What's the Emerald City?
I don't know if that's the huge embassy in Iraq or if it's from the Wizard of Oz.
Let's do a live show in the green zone.
Live, free, and Eddie. Somehow I find Pascal so easy to listen to despite the incredible density of the speech. Indeed. Alex R. Charles Dukes is a Black politically involved person. Amen to all of this. This is a perfect breakdown of the history and context of Black Democratic politicians. Foresto. I still remember arguing with neoliberal who was convinced that I was racist in 2016 for criticizing the crime bill because the Congressional Black Caucus supported it. It was an astounding WTF moment. V. Sam, you missed out on a great episode of Emma Could Have Been Somebody. Punch Drunk Pulpit. Pascal had the best take on the slappening, and you should thank him for it. Shapiro literally disowned his sister for marrying a brown guy, and there he is talking about judging people for the content of their character on his vile little show. Is that true?
I had never heard that.
I've never heard that either. We need to get on that very, very quickly. Nug Wrangler. Emma's getting better at comedy, and it's making Sam nervous. No, I would even pay for a shitty feed of the Boston show, even if it's someone's phone streaming it.
We will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law.
Exactly. And Troma, staying in Brooklyn for the weekend. Any recommendations on places to visit?
Can I guess what you're going to say? Transit Museum.
Well, if you have kids, if you have like a 7-year-old kid, Transit Museum, but also Transit Museums, it's a quick little.
Yeah. No, I wanted to make sure I could read
You know
your
where
mind
I
a
would
little
go?
bit. Yeah.
With the weather this nice? Well, I don't know.
Ooh, this weekend, what's it going to be like?
I only know with kids. But Governor's Island is actually a quick little nice little trip. It's fun. Ride your bike around there. You can get like a little pedicab cab.
Yeah.
You ride it.
Go to Brooklyn Bridge Park.
Okay, you could do that too.
Yeah.
What else would I go? Maybe it was did you go to that brewery in the Navy Yard? I've never been there, but I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's like not that pretty over there. I feel like.
I don't like, for me, it's all just kid stuff.
Yeah, me, it's all. Just
I can tell you where you can go see a marionette show. Well, I mean, people really want to know.
1936.
Yeah, exactly. There is it's like a little place on like 6th Avenue that is like, it does feel like you walked into 1936. It's really amazing. Holden two dicks. Oh shoot. Florida's Don't Say Gay bill is essentially a gag order on teachers. Parents are not the sole arbiters of information in their children's lives. The kids learn in every situation, every environment. They learn from their parents, their teachers. They also learn from the media and from each other. Children are curious about themselves and their bodies, regardless of what reactionary parents regard as age appropriate. What all children need, including 5-year-olds, is guidance from adults so they can understand and interpret their experiences. Florida law prohibits teachers from offering that guidance to the detriment of all children in the public school system, without a doubt.
It's just Scope's monkey trial populism back from the dead.
Brother from Brooklyn, a buddy of mine got to debate Dave Rubin. Check it out on the End of the Valuetainment podcast. We get a lot of stuff to do. Man Shovel. I love it when MR has Pascal on. His commentary is not only insightful, but he breaks everything down and digestible to easy to understand manner. Keep up the great work. Left is best. And Mr. Meeks. Will y'all ever do a live show in Atlanta? I'll personally buy you each a Luther burger if you do.
I'd love to visit Atlanta.
That might be a fun place to do.
Yeah.
We got to start talking about that, actually, because we got to get on that. Do 1 or 2 other shows I'd like to do.
Just want to go to a warm place.
Well, it's going to be warm here soon.
Right. Well,
soon, right?
That's true.
Still New York, though.
As opposed to like going to Atlanta.
I mean, New York is nice, but New York in the summer, it's just like,
too hot.
Bus exhaust on you and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that.
It's New York's nice for like 3 months out of the year. It's like
spring
May.
and fall are pretty good.
Right.
Probably
wouldn't live anywhere else though.
Here is the Fox 5, talking about the latest decision by the Biden administration to push debt cancellation, or I should say to push student debt, to continue the moratorium until basically September 1st. Now you have to ask, like, what is the theory behind this? Why would you do this? And whatever your answer is, should lead you to have the same answer as to why you would cancel the debt totally. Because it helps people, and we don't need that money.
I have a new reason. Fight inflation, because higher education inflation is a really bad problem. So we should fight it that way.
The way you would fight higher education inflation after that is to fund actual free college.
Right.
Going forward, because then that would drive down the competitors.
Right. It's more relief for inflation's victims, I guess.
But also, here is an error that they make on the 5. I know that's a shock to everybody, about the relationship between debt cancellation, or at least in this instance, debt moratorium and inflation.
There's a few Democratic-leaning economists like Jason Furman and Larry Summers say that this is terrible policy, and so it's very much a mixed bag for Democrats on this.
Yeah, a lot is a mixed bag for Democrats when you talk about the progressives. Look, progressives want full cancellation of $1.6 trillion in student debt. Now, think about this. We've got 11.3 million job openings.
Yep.
Wages are on the rise. Certainly not enough to keep up with inflation, but more than enough jobs for these people to get a job and pay back their student loans. Okay? So the delay itself that Biden has been granting, I don't know if this is the 4th or the 6th, is costing the government something like $100 billion so far, because nobody's making any payments. But here's the bottom line. You have a contract. You have a contract with the person who loaned you the money. If you can't pay it, that's your problem. Get a job like everyone else. You want to do a favor for people? I have an idea. Why don't you do a favor for people like veterans who are committing suicide, who don't have a home to live in? And then we have to rely on the great organizations like Tunnel to Towers to make these small homes, these smart homes for veterans. And then, we've got senior citizens who are living on a fixed income when inflation is higher than it's been in 40 years. So these lazy kids want to have their loan canceled. Nonsense. Pay your darn loan, get a job, and be quiet.
Be quiet.
Be quiet. And that's all she has to say about it.
They're up a lot. Most of them are, to Judge Splinter, upper middle class.
That's right. I mean,
Well, first of all, they're not upper middle class. The overwhelming, it's almost beyond. It's even beyond overwhelming number of these people, in fact, do have jobs.
It says everything that he needs to say that, though. That he feels that like you have to tag that on there.
You have to put that they're upper middle class. You have to claim that they don't have jobs. When Jeanine Pirro went to college, the cost of college was 10, 12 times less. The same pressures that you're talking about, and I appreciate her saying that we should give more benefits on Social Security to elder folks, that we should spend more on
veterans healthcare,
and we should spend more on homelessness in the country. All of that, we can do all of that. In fact, we can do all of it, and that is. It is sort of like a little bit mask off there. I mean, there are millions of people.
Like, get to work, crack the whip.
But it's not just get to work, right? Because these millennials that are saddled with student debt, I mean, unemployment is down at a record low rate. We're at 3.5, 3.6%, something like that. Can we just verify that? I mean, it's a very, very low rate at this point. A lot of millennials are working, and that's not enough to keep up with the crushing student debt. But for someone like Jeanine Pirro, one, they're appealing to their geriatric audience. So being like, get up off your ass, you lazy kids, and be more like us. I mean, that's just crack for the audience. But two, they want to compel kids, millennials, whatever, people to work not just in any job, but in jobs that serve profit and capital, that like have the promise and the carrot of lucrativeness at the end of the day, funneling them into pro-corporate, I don't know, law firms or a white collar work and things like that, serving those same industries, when a lot of people in our generation are okay, so it was 3.5, 3.6%. A lot of people in our generation are like seeking alternative paths, or or are unable to like climb the traditional Wall Street ladder in the way that people like Jeanine Pirro's in Jeanine Pirro's generation were able to.
Yeah, because we decided that we can't just have people be educated like widely for higher education. We need to set up a system of debt, basically bondage, that traps them in. Like, we set up a system where you have a teenager that the thing standing between them and an education is a banker and accepting a loan. And I remember accepting my student loans when I was like going into college, but like only barely.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm like 33 now. It was 15 years ago. I was an idiot at that.
You signed a contract at 18, right?
Yeah,
You probably couldn't even drink legally at that. Well, you couldn't.
Yeah, I literally couldn't. And you don't know what you want. And all you know about college, because I didn't have parents that went to college, so all you know about college is it's supposed to be this ticket to like middle class sustenance, and the idea that you need to guard this stuff, like that's not the meritocratic dream of higher education in this country.
And just to expand on my point too about that, it's not just the types of jobs that they're going into, it's also the specialties within the jobs. Like, I don't know, say you take on a bunch of debt to go to law school. You don't want to become a public defender, do you?
No, of course not.
You can't pay off your student loans. You want to go and work for the
McKinsey.
law firm. Yeah, you went to whatever, business school, or you went to regular college, go work as a consultant, as opposed to go, work for a small business. They talk a huge game about small businesses. Not that, there's a lot of myth to that, but It's a way to sort people and make them desperate enough to do the jobs that serve them.
And it's almost impossible to reconcile Gutfield's comments with Piro's. They are both upper middle class and
they're rich,
jobless, and
I thought you meant
had gotten the loans. They qualified for loans, even though they came, like, if they have no job, how are they upper middle class at this point? Unless they came from enough money that they could have afforded college in the first place.
No, they're just lazy. They're like the lazy granola indie kid that wants to smoke weed and listen to rock music. That's what they're the image they're trying to instill in their audience.
Right.
They're like
Meanwhile-
your
meanwhile, you've
grandson,
got people-
Morty. They're exactly like your grandson.
You got people who are starting to get their Social Security garnished to pay back these loans. All right. J3000. Sam, your beard frightens me and I hate you.
I'm just gonna
Left
run
is
to the restroom.
best.
I'm just running to the restroom.
Rob from Dedham. The Wilbur is still running on dial-up. It's weird, but they are a little bit, that was their big thing, right? They don't have good Wi-Fi. They don't have good internet. Is this the bad place? Hey, Sam and Emma, wondering about your thoughts on this groomer rhetoric. It feels like AstroTurf because it happened overnight, and I'm seeing it everywhere now. This is a huge escalation in anti-trans rhetoric, and I'm not even sure how we fight back at this point, but I'm extremely concerned, especially for trans kids. I mean, it's always AstroTurfed.
Yeah, but
I mean,
one of the lineages is, if you've paid attention to the anti-Muslim stuff in the UK, they were accusing Muslim like refugees of being grooming gangs and stuff like that. So it's didn't come from nowhere.
No, and this is rhetoric that was deployed, as recently as, I don't know, 25 years ago, even 20 years ago, with gay people. And in fact, it's not they're attacking trans folks, but I'm telling you right now, they're coming for gay marriage. They're coming for gay marriage, which means that they will expand. Well, don't say gay. It's not just trans stuff that's happening here. So we're talking about trans kids, yes. We're also talking about gay kids. They're coming for it. They're coming for it. This is what happens. I did again. Just because you aren't live streaming the Wilbur Show in Boston doesn't mean you can't record it. Give it as release it as a podcast later for members. Just a thought, no pressure. It's very possible we may do that. Would be happy to provide a schmear of the best Chicago pizza for the whole crew should you ever decide to do a live show in the Windy City. All right. I'll put that down the list. Miker. Okay. Nice try. Mike Rochburns. So, Sam, what's your preference? DeWalt, Makita, Milwaukee? Please don't say Porter Cable. I had the old, was it Kawasaki? Like the problem is, like, I inherited like a Milwaukee sander, and I wanted to get all my battery stuff to be the same. And then of course they changed the batteries on it. And like, I can't remember the brand I had that changed their name. And, but I did get a Festool track saw, and it has really changed my life. And it's the most expensive tool I've ever bought. It's probably more expensive than almost every tool I've bought combined, but it has really changed my life. And now I'm thinking about getting a Festool sander and a Festool jigsaw, because they're amazing. NJ Canfield. No feed from the Wilbur? Wow, it really is the big live. Perfectly normal. There's this amazing new technology called cameras. They will unfortunately capture your soul. Okay, I get it. I didn't say we're not going to record the show. I said we can't stream it live. J-Man Raps. Big time dub last night for my Raps over the Flang Sixers. Does Mr. Matlack, Bradley, or Emma think they can beat them in the playoffs?
They're the
Beat the
basketball
Sixers?
experts, not me.
The Raptors can beat the Sixers. A lot of teams can beat the Sixers. Sixers are trash. Embiid's great, but I mean, the team's got a lot of problems, and I don't believe in Harden. So yeah, they can of course beat the Sixers. They can't beat. Who can't they beat? They can't probably beat the Heat or the Bucks. Yeah.
Oh, let's play this 19. Yeah. Steve Crowder had a problem. It's not the votes. It's not the
suspicious personal activity,
child trafficking allegations. It's none of those things that's going to do it for Steven Crowder. Has he got his holster on there? Does he have his it's tough to see. I think he must.
Might be time to attack.
Oh no, he's got his holster on.
Oh. Stand down.
Yeah. Does he keep like some type of does he keep a weapon in there, or does he just keep some type of the guns on the table?
Oh. That's gotta be it's like a paperweight, that gun.
Yeah. No,
right.
I think, or does he keep, what does he keep in his holster? Is it
but what's the way it's standing up, that gun?
Like a massaging device, as it were. Anyways, here's Steven Crowder.
Show up on time. You got to do it. We've had this with a couple of people, and they get really mad. Remember, we had that once with Candace Owens, where she got. I was like, "It's a live show."
It's like, sorry.
Do you understand that? Because everyone is so used to. This is also. Look, I will say this. This is one thing that happens in the conservative sphere a lot.
We got to tell this to Ryan Grimm.
We come from an
What's this?
We got to tell us to show this.
Oh yeah, you got to show up on time.
Background, not a political background, not an AM talk radio background, not a Fox News background where everything is pre-taped, except for the transitions. And most conservatives don't really understand it, and they want what this platform avails to them. I'm not saying this is what happened with Representative Gates, but you know what? You want to be here. You want your voice to be heard. You reached out to us. Be on time. Be on time.
Do it.
That's all we ask. We're not trying to. When we extend it 15 minutes, and I think people could tell because we were stretching.
We were digging deep, baby.
And I was going to decide: do I want to go on to the next segment that we had prepared, or I'm not going to have time for that? But what's more important to me is you. And Chat Thursday is something that a lot of people look forward to, and so we will never supplant you with someone just because they want to be on 15, 20, 30 minutes late. That's not how we do it here. So no hard feelings, but I hope you guys understand why I make that call. And you know what? Comment. I'd like to read your chats on that if you understand or if you disagree.
Here's my comment. You're a coward. You got cold feet. I know that feeling when somebody won't show up. When you agree to do something at like a Politicon or something like that, for instance. And
I mean, you understand this because you understand this because you come from an entertainment background, but Crowder, being from the conservative media background, doesn't understand things.
He doesn't understand those things. You sign up for a Politicon type of thing.
You tell a booker you're going to be there.
You tell a booker you're going to be there, and you got to be there. People make plans.
They want to, let the dad call you the booker later and back out of it.
One of the things about live shows too is that sometimes things don't go exactly as you hope they do. And you got to roll with it. You can't be afraid. If you've invited Matt Gaetz and let's say Paul Gosar shows up, just coming back from his KKK rally or wherever it is, you gotta just go with it. You don't go like, oh no, what a nightmare. What am I going to do? You just go with it because it's a live show.
Also, if you have Gates back, ask him about the allegations.
Yeah, interesting.
Actually,
Does he have any thoughts on that with the whole Ketanji Brown Jackson pedophilia rant he's been on?
Oh, I doubt it. But he does probably want to debate the potential minor. That's right.
That is in his wheelhouse.
Change my mind. What else should we do here?
Greg Kelly 11 is ridiculous. McConnell struggling to say if he has more.
Oh yeah. Let's play that one. This was interesting. I mean, I am predisposed to being skeptical of Swan, but this is a pretty good question here. Like, do you have any type of moral line? Now, the bottom line is like, look, from a political standpoint, of course, politicians, like morality in politics, like, who cares? But within the context of like an Axios Bank of America interview, where none of the questions are going to be like, hey, that are going to be significant relative to like the power of the bankers, the financialization of our economy, or what's happening to workers. None of that's going to happen. But at the very least, as a political matter, strictly as like politics, I like the idea that, Mitch McConnell gets put on the hot seat. This would be a great thing. And this would have been a great thing for Democrats to do in the run up to the 2016 election. Make the leadership of the party make a proclamation on the most popular presidential candidate in their party to create a wedge.
It also maybe into 2020 as well.
2020 would have been good too. Instead of saying like, we need great, strong Republicans and my friend Mitch McConnell and
perhaps the Democrats wouldn't have lost seats in the House.
It's quite possible. Or, when Chuck Schumer said like, I've got Schumer, I've got Clinton, and I've got Paul Ryan, and we're going to make a repatriation of overseas tax deal in October. Maybe you shouldn't worry about Paul Ryan's fortunes so much. Maybe you should worry about your own candidates' fortunes and your own parties. But here is Jonathan Swan asking Mitch McConnell an uncomfortable question.
You are known for playing a ruthless style of politics. Where do you draw your moral red lines?
I didn't realize I was known for playing a ruthless. I thought my wife thinks I'm a really nice guy. My kids like me. I got a lot of friends.
That's 4 so far. Okay.
I'm shocked to hear such a comment.
Let's just take as a premise, and I think the audience might agree with me, that there are some people, maybe some substantial people in this country who might agree with that assertion.
Not your wife.
I'm sure you could find
so
some
moral red lines. Where do you draw
them? I'm perfectly comfortable with the way I have conducted my political career, and I'd be happy to respond to any specificity you want to apply to the term. What was it?
Moral red lines.
Moral red line. Yeah.
Well,
I'm very comfortable with my moral red line.
Let me give you one specific. Help me understand this. I watched your speech last year in February on the Senate floor after the second impeachment vote on Donald Trump. And it was an extraordinary speech. You spoke very powerfully against the most powerful figure in your party, the president. And you said Donald Trump's actions preceding the January 6th insurrection were a, quote, disgraceful dereliction of duty, and that he was practically and morally responsible, your words, for provoking the events of that day. How do you go from saying that to 2 weeks later saying you'd absolutely support Donald Trump if he's the Republican nominee in 2024?
Well, as the Republican leader of the Senate, it should not be a front page headline that I will support the Republican nominee for president.
After you've said that about him, I think it's astonishing.
I think I have an obligation to support the nominee of my party. And
is there anything they could do?
I will. That will mean that whoever the nominee is.
Pause it for 1 second. I wish Swan had stayed on that question. What could the president do that would make you not to release you from that obligation? You've already said this guy's morally responsible for what took place on January 6th. So it's not that. Being the catalyst and maybe even more directing, maybe planning some type of riot or insurrection or whatever you want to call it, assault on the Capitol. That's not enough. What would it take? Like, what could Donald Trump have ever done that would have made Mitch McConnell, after he realized, like, oh, wait a second, I was a little bit wrong about who the Republican Party is, but I course corrected very quickly within 2 weeks.
Could that candidate, I don't know, shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue?
I mean, honestly, like that's why I wish he had continued with that line of question. But continue here. It's interesting to watch McConnell get a little testy about this.
And
is there anything they could do?
I will. That will mean that whoever the nominee is has gone out and earned the nomination.
Okay, but Donald Trump earned it last time, and I'm just trying to understand. What you say matters. You're a very important voice in this country. You're the leader of your party, and you seem to hold two concurrent, conflicted positions, which is
not at all inconsistent. Not at all inconsistent. I stand by everything I said on
I understand, but
January 6th and everything I said on February the 13th.
I understand that, but what I want to understand, which I haven't heard you address, is
because I don't get to pick the Republican nominee for president. They're elected by the Republican voters all over the country.
I fully understand that, but take Liz Cheney, for example.
You want to spend some more time on this as well?
I actually do, because I actually, I genuinely want to understand this. I really want to understand how you think about this, because
Make it
Liz
seem
Cheney,
like I'm not getting
who has the
pissed
same view of you of January 6th, she said she doesn't want Donald Trump anywhere near the White House, and she's going to work to not make that happen, because she thinks that there are some things more important than party loyalty.
Yeah. Well, maybe you ought to be talking to Liz Cheney.
No, but I'm not trying to. I really, it's not a gotcha. I'm just actually trying to understand, like, is there any threshold for you of what someone can do on a moral level?
I say many things I'm sure people don't understand.
Also, I mean, I would
seem to have lost a little patience with that question.
Yeah, he did a good job, but at the end, you should say Liz Cheney's not the leader of the Republicans in the Senate.
I mean, I think this is that line of questioning is exactly what the Democrats should have done in the run up to 2016, in the run up to 2020, in the run up to 2022. Because, like, I don't know how much harder Mitch McConnell could signal to his political opponents. I don't have the ability to distance myself from Donald Trump. Like, I don't have the ability. Like, I am in a jam here. They blew it with KBJ in the same way. Like, Mitch McConnell was a little bit pissed about what Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and Tom Cotton were doing.
So he's pissed about that, and he's pissed he has to be put in that position, right? It ties him into a pretzel. And yet, in both of these instances, as you say, like, when you see weakness in your opponent, you're the opposition party. That's when you strike. And then it's just, most Republicans are good. They're not like Trump.
We need a strong Republican Party. And it is our job as the opposition party to spend the time building up the Republican Party.
It's literally like they're under some sort of contractual obligation to say that every single month.
It's
Pelosi, it's your turn? Okay, this month is my turn, says Chuck Schumer.
Bear at home too. Sam, I'm visiting New York City this coming week. Anything must-see to do for kids 5 to 17? I will go to Roosevelt Island. I mean, Governor's Island.
Didn't Saul like that Harry Potter experience too?
Oh yeah, there's that Harry Potter store. That's good. I mean, yeah, he liked it.
You could take him to Chelsea Piers, play some games there too.
If it's a nice week, like taking up like one of those like monster boat things around.
Oh yeah, around the Hudson.
Around the Hudson is actually not bad. Trying to think what else.
I mean, this is like so touristy, but when I was really young, I loved that Madame Tussauds thing. But for you, that might be miserable.
And then museums. Parent. What else? There's a couple things right there. There we go. Rotten the pig. Biden doesn't inspire fear or love. He has done nothing to pass a domestic agenda and nothing to shame lawmakers who oppose it. Hard to disagree with that. Jordy Report wardrobe coordinator watching that 5 segment reminds me that there's going to be a lot of lonely boomers in the nursing homes wondering why their kids don't come around. Indeed. Are we going to do any kind of meet and greet after the Wilbur show? I mean, probably do something not too dissimilar from what we did at the Bell House, which is out by the merch tables, stand there, say hi, maybe take a picture or something like that. Ad hominem. Have you folks listened to Tim Pool's terrible song yet? It was promoted on Twitter for a while. I have not.
No.
Eat hot chip and lie. Okay. Sweet Florida because Alabama is no longer racist enough. District Jabroni. Hi, Sam, Emma, and crew. I just wanted to formally let you know that I'm serving you with a lawsuit. Between the Dave Rubin clips and the DeSantis song, I'm suffering from cringe trauma. You'll be held accountable for the excess amount of cringe you're exposing your audience to. Alex from California. This may be a little bit of a hot take, but I think the wrong Van Zant died. The song honestly feels like a slap in the face to Ronnie Van Zant. Jibber jabber. Is it worth getting concerned about Romney in 2024? If he were nominated, it seems like he could steal a lot of centrist lib votes. Yes. And if I had wings, I could fly.
He won't get nominated yet. That's a good point.
Nicole from Buffalo. That sounded so weirdly like we didn't start the fire. The Billy Joel should sue. Yeah, it's true. A citizen. Bush was right. We didn't start the fire. Santa Posit. What about the Trump song, The Freedom Kids? Yes, I remember that. Did you know Eric Bollert? I did know Eric. I didn't know him well. I've had him as a guest on, over the years, particularly probably more on Air America, and I would occasionally run into him at MSNBC, and he was a very nice guy. That's the one thing that always struck me about him. He was a very nice guy. Real.
So sad.
Sad.
It's awful.
And, I thought some of his work I appreciated more than others on some level, but certainly a lot of his journalism I thought was pretty good. And, but just so sad for his family. Horrible. Really horrible. Freedom Poutine. They take a moment and Bush was right to trash Cindy Sheehan. Just revolting. That's right. Chris Burdick. Forget Bush was right. What about the timeless funk classic, the song simply titled Herman Cain? Do you remember that?
No. You had the song?
Oh, yes.
Now I remember.
Oh, my God. It was fantastic. What really killed Emma's show business career was her refusal to star in any movie where half the cast wasn't named Julia.
Yep. There you go.
Do you have the Herman Cain song?
This is a Tim Heidecker version, so I'm having trouble finding the original.
Cane Train?
Cane Train, I think it was. The Bush Was Right band also had a love song about Ann Coulter.
Oh, Jesus.
Bush era lib.
There's something wrong with you.
Yes.
There's something wrong with you if that's what you're into.
Yes. Let's do this segment I found really repellent. Fox and Friends talking to, I guess, one of their guest hosts from Texas. He's talking about what's his name? Lawrence Jones, talking about Austin, Texas. What makes Austin, Texas so gross? This is clip number 17. What makes it so gross? Well, here it is.
Texans don't claim Austin.
Really? Because it's,
it's very
so
liberal.
It's huge.
Okay, and everybody,
Big
there's
homeless.
liberals moving there, and it's a mess. They wanted to fund the police
capital,
there.
though.
Yeah, it is the capital. So we're forced to go there if we want to go to the
And
capital.
they're big pro-homeless. It's become a magnet
Go
for
back.
homeless.
They're big pro-homeless. I want you to just let that sink in a little bit, because what is the other option? Go ahead.
That's where the big pro-homeless industry is located.
And it's a mess. They wanted to fund
It's
the police
the capital,
there.
though.
Yeah, it is the capital. So we're forced to go there if we want to go to the
And
capital.
they're big pro-homeless. It's become a magnet for homeless underneath the tunnels and
So all
bridges.
the
crime is out of control.
All the people from California that moved down to Texas, is that where they went? They went to
go
Austin
there.
for like-minded people.
The tech companies are all there. So
Yeah.
those San Francisco people, that's their community.
How would you?
That's why they look the same.
Would you classify Dallas? Dallas is pretty liberal, right?
Yeah, it's liberal, but the suburbs are actually quite conservative. And actually, Dallas didn't defund the police. Their crime rate has actually gone down in Dallas.
Let's go out to Austin, where Dan Crenshaw calls home.
Now, but I mean, contemplate this for a moment. Like they're a magnet for homeless people. Like, no, he doesn't even say people. He doesn't call them people. What does anti-homeless mean? Like, I mean, you're literally talking about people as if they are like vermin.
Yep.
You're a magnet for homeless. Like, where are these people prior to them? But you being a magnet to them, they're roving around, and they should just stay on the outskirts of towns.
They're children. They don't like seeing people that are homeless. That's really what it is. I don't want to think about this. Why is your existence making me look at you?
It's so disgusting, their perspective on the idea that these are people. Like the opposite of pro-homeless is anti-homeless, not homelessness. It's good to be anti-homelessness. We need to create homes for people. This is a societal problem that we are against and want to fix. No, they think you should be against the people who don't have homes.
Yep.
You should be against the people who have nowhere to sleep or stay.
And they won't actually address any alternatives outside of just get out of my sight or incarcerate you, because they don't want to, they're against public housing essentially. And because they want, if you fall into an economic situation or a mental health situation that leaves you without a house, homeless, they want you to be punished for that. They want to make those conditions rough because it's a moral failing to be in that position. And
Even
that's
if you're
why you're
kids?
yeah. Even if you're a trans kid that was kicked out of your home, or a gay kid because your family doesn't which is disproportionate in terms of the homeless population. That's your fault for being gay, for getting kicked out. That's your fault. And so you should feel the repercussions for it being as inhospitable of an environment of a living situation as possible.
So twisted. I can't even imagine like
They have no
having those
empathy.
words come out of your mouth and not going like, "Ugh, I meant." Just he's championing it. Sam's dried up calves after a long day of hard work during I sometimes experience dryness. That's when I like to turn my CB radio from my friends at CB Depot. I love to talk with my pals about all our favorite balms. Make sure to get all of your not going to do that. MIDI doctors. I was disappointed that Pascal did not say left flank of Capitol. Hit the like button. Hit the like button,
It's
folks.
a reference to left flank vets on Twitch.
8 cheese. Sam, these colors don't run, remember? Please let me toss a hat in the ring of locations for an on-the-road MR show. The home of Just Coffee. Home of the University of Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. Yeah, that would actually be pretty good. Tojo's Bald Head. Chicago pizza is a casserole, a lasagna, if you will. Detroit pizza is just crappy Sicilian pizza. Pineapple is horrible bad on pizza. The end.
Yeah, more interested in
Horrible.
history than philosophy. So,
Batatar. Absolutely love Pascal Robert. Charismatic and great insights make him a regular. North Dakota Llama. Did Jeremy Renner do something? Were you thinking of Ezra Miller, who played the Flash?
No.
Never mind. Just read the Jeremy Renner stuff. If it's true, yikes.
I hadn't heard that either.
Jarrett Lund. I checked out the Libs of TikTok Twitter account after Binder mentioned it yesterday. It's horrifying and disgusting. To those who don't know, the account shares videos and stories related to LGBTQ issues to fearmonger over them and accuse people, a lot of whom are teachers and healthcare workers, of being groomers and pedophiles.
Yeah, it's fascist.
Wow. I encourage folks to read Twitter user GN Rosenberg at GN Rosenberg's recent thread about the right's groomer panic and how it's categorically different and more dangerous than what we've seen historically and has greater potential to lead to widespread political violence. I also think it has a huge potential to lead to sort of like generational problems for kids staying in the closet. Dr. Gurus. Sam, there's an antibiotic-resistant salmonella outbreak in U.S. chickens ongoing for like 5 years. USDA has jurisdiction over meats for human consumption, but is afraid to regulate. FDA has jurisdiction over pet foods and has cracked down perfectly. Your cat food is safer than your chicken because of regulatory capture. Could you have someone on to talk about this? ProPublica has written 2 great pieces on this. I'll check those out. Miss Heathen, what's great about deconstructing gender is you can be gay and trans as well. Gender is limitless. It's really up to you how you want to express yourself. F what these vile transphobes and homophobes think. Us trans folk need to band together, sign up for political groups, and get meaner. We should be communicating with our local communities on the ground. Like how Amazon unions were formed. That's how we fight back with all this anti-LGBTQ bullshit. Got to grassroots it. Left is best. Rem. Nolan from the Detroit suburbs. That Fox News clip about student debt is ridiculous. While I have a good paying job and can pay my bills, my student debt still prevents me from buying a house. I also have to go to work at certain jobs that will pay me enough to make the debt and pay my bills. Can't imagine how others are who have not been as lucky as I. That's the thing, is that in terms of the economy, it's exactly what we need.
But once again, just like the healthcare, where we don't do the smart thing on universal healthcare, that corporate control over a labor force is more important to them than the healthy economy.
Well, there she says it right there. Get a job.
Go pay off your NYU education at Target.
Random info. Let's talk about those hidden from most discussions on student debt. The many people that got shuffled into private bank money, similarly to those who got funneled into crap mortgages. Indeed. Fine Pillow Guy, Sam, Crab Salt Truther, Tim Heidecker, and free-thinking birds aren't real guy that you had on your show last month seem to be teaming up with Ron Burgundy to create their own trustworthy media. The Truth Report. Check out their Twitter. It's disgusting. All of those people involved in that, gross. Jay Tingle, I realize you don't know who I am, but I've been promoting the playing of La Poupée qui fait non since the days when you played the Luna version. I even sent you an Italian language version. You could find a way to bring it back in the Billy Bragg version of the Woody Guthrie anti-fascist song. I believe it would save the podcast.
Needs saving.
I mean, it's not inconceivable that we could put that in the actual audio podcast.
Yeah.
It'd be tricky.
Why is Jay Tingle acting like we don't know who he is?
Who?
Wasn't it Jay Tingle?
Jay Tingle.
Oh.
Yes, no, it's Jay Tingle. Yes, well, we said that we played the Italian language version. And the Billy Bragg, it was actually, that was
pre-show music back in
the day. That was from the Mermaid Avenue album with Wilco and Billy Bragg. And I remember, I still think of that, oh man, that's new music. That's new, but it was new in 2004. Just gives you an idea. It gives you a little insight into the way that my mind works. It's just like frozen. Sam, Emma, thank you so much for having Pascal on. And we really appreciate you giving a boost to an important voice on the left. Also, I paid $10 for this. Sam, does this even come with a sign on a gift sticker? Anyway, I hope you and Emma back on the show. I hope to have you back on the show. I need to get Emma on the sports show so she can talk sports and gambling in a safe place. We're planning an event in New York City. I hope we make it. Peace out. Also, Emma Pascal loves poop humor, not Clinton, but not Clinton.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is this Jason?
Yeah, I was about to say this must be Jason because they tweeted out the appearance and stuff.
I'm just about to send you an email, Jason, because I'd
love to come back on.
Oh, yes, but I'm talking about that video. Well, we'll talk to Thames Darwin. Important point about Romney, he has a black grandchild, the adoptive child of one of his sons. So while it's possible that his grandkid is a stunt baby, Mitt might actually have evolved on race since his grandchild entered the picture. So while this, after all, is the only way in which conservatives learn empathy. Like I say, his dad was also, there. But at the same time, Mitt Romney,
You're a Republican. Like, I don't really have a ton of kudos to give.
Right.
It's just
the best was Mitt Romney. This got lost in that 47% takers makers video. Do you remember that?
Yes.
There was another part when he spoke to those people that was actually even more, I think, sort of like indicative of his complete obliviousness to the amount of like privilege, I guess would be the easiest way to say it.
Right.
I mean, this is a guy who complained, like, when, and I can't remember his wife name, when we were broke and we were barely living off of our stock portfolio at that time. When they were, in the basement in Boston, we were barely living off our stock portfolio. And he said something at that fundraiser that his, and I'm going to mix up exactly what the timeline was, but that his grandfather, I guess, his father may have been born in Mexico, and his grandfather lived there or whatever. And he said, if my last name was Ramirez or something to that, like, I would be president. And it's just like, if Romney's last name was Ramirez, his father would not have been the president of the largest car company in America, or one of the three, whatever it was. His father would not have been governor of Michigan in the 1950s. None of those things that put him in a position to run for president, to have been the governor of Massachusetts. Was he at one point governor of Utah or senator from Utah? I don't know what he had done in Utah at that point, or, whatever, head of the Olympics. None of those things would have happened for him if his family's last name was Ramirez, coming from Mexico.
Probably wouldn't have even been Mormon.
But I mean, maybe.
There's some Latino Mormons, but
very
small percent.
But the bottom line is he had no concept of he was standing there in front of these people because almost specifically because his name was not Ramirez.
Yeah.
Just fascinating. All right, let's do 3 more of these and we're out of here. Loan payer. As a recent grad, I must say, Sam, I have increasing wages, which are not enough to compete with rising inflation, but is way more than I need to pay back my debt. Not sure why you'd agree with Pero. She made so much sense. Another Matt. Don't know if you mentioned this, but why do students have to pay back their debts when all the rich people and their businesses got 3 PPP loans during COVID that they don't have to pay back? They literally got free money. Also, that money is never mentioned in the fake inflation commentary, only the $1,400 checks. Funny how that all works.
Yep.
PPP comparison is very interesting.
Yeah. Because theoretically, all that PPP money went to salaries for workers. But in practice, not
there was a lot of misappropriated PPP money. I mean,
Yes.
like, there were bachelor influencers that I know from watching the reality show that I have a small business because we're a couple that met on The Bachelor, and we sell, fit tea and stuff on Instagram, and they got like tens of thousands of dollars in PPP loan paying their workers, aka themselves.
Sam's agent. When is Uchiwali going to weigh in on this deep dish debacle? You coastal elites need a lesson from a real Midwesterner. And the final IM of the week. Let's see. Who are we going to pick here? Who have we not heard from in a long time?
Suspense is killing me.
I know. Well, let's just do Al from Cincinnati. I'm stuck in a trauma loop in a studio apartment with everything I need, but I haven't been able to move to a space to work in 3 years. Subscribe to my Patreon. Matt, Bradley, Emma.
Interesting choice.
I just looked at the name.
It felt right.
Great job today. Great job this week. See you guys on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot still takes